Awesome. Welcome everyone. So yeah, welcome to the all Canadian edition of my show here, and Vish, who is playing our token American today. So yeah, I'm Kipp Davis. I'm a specialist in early Judaism and the Dead Sea Scrolls and a biblical scholar. And it's Friday, the 27th of March at 2:00 in the afternoon. And I'm here with my co-host Vish, as well as Paulogia from Paulogia and CJ Cornthwaite from CJ Cornthwaite. So welcome, guys. It's good that you're here. And I have applause somewhere. There we go.
Wow, that really makes it.
Yeah, how very fracturic of you.
Ouch, that hurt.
The gloves come off right away.
I think it was meant to. So
see, some people know that it's the
that's good. Nice. So cool. All right. Well, there's a lot to do.
Strays already.
Yay, it's Vish, two of my favorite Canadians, and unfortunately Kipp. Well, I mean, you know, where else are you going to get your opportunity to see Vish and CJ and Paul together? So
it's true.
I mean, for now,
only SBL one day.
That's right.
There. Yes.
Yeah.
So, but yes, here we are, and there's a lot to do, but maybe because this is the way things are done in this universe. Do you guys maybe want to each give yourselves an introduction and a plug, even though I'm quite certain it's unnecessary? Starting with CJ.
Yeah, I want to jump into my Canadian accent. Hi there, everybody. No, that was more American. But, a boot. Okay, let me try that again. Take two. This isn't live, right?
No.
So yeah, CJ Cornthwaite. My channel is CJ Cornthwaite. Exactly what you see on the stream there. I have a PhD in religious studies with a specialization in Christian origins, and on my channel I talk a little bit, mostly about ancient Christianity, a little bit about some modern stuff, and some counter apologetics too.
Cool.
I am Paul with Paulogia. I have a YouTube channel where I am a former Christian who just talks about the claims of Christians. I am not a scholar. In fact, just not that many years ago, I thought dinosaurs floated on the ark, and that you know, all that stuff was real. So my role is primarily as cautionary tale. I don't get invited out much, so I just say yes if someone says, "Hey, scholars are going to be here, and I can learn from them, and I can hang out in the room." Then I'm going to say yes, and that's my role today. I'm not. This isn't an official. This isn't my official reaction video to what's happening here, to the shenanigans. I know we'll get to it, but I came here to learn from three of you, and I'm just going to hang out.
I'm not a scholar either. I'm drafting off of these two.
Well, we came to learn from you, so there's kind of a vicious circle going on here.
I see what you did there. A vicious.
But I think I started this mess. I think that's how that's mainly.
I was I was about to say that you had the temerity to challenge the wisdom of inspiring philosophy and psychologist extraordinaire Nick Meader.
Indeed.
She's a future rabbi. That's right. Because you know what? This is so apropos.
Are there female rabbis?
The answer is yes.
There will be. This should be the first one, right?
Yeah, the first one who's getting smacked off from one of the other first ones.
Yeah. So but you had the audacity to challenge the thinking of inspiring philosophy and Nick Meader on this point of the resurrection of Jesus.
Well, to be fair, this goes back much further than that. I was commenting on Gary Habermas's Volume 2 of On the Resurrection,
Oh,
And then they
Okay.
responded to my video about Gary Habermas. And then I responded to their video about me. So we are
many
several
levels
sandwiches deep,
deep
on this one.
here. It's true. And I mean, at this point, I just, in many respects, I just, and because I've been, we've been in the chat thread together watching CJ kind of lose his mind over this as well. I am at the point of thinking, honestly, this is just so stupid. It really is. But we're going to do this anyways. We're going to look at the stream that Mike and Nick and Than Christopoulos did together to complain about your ongoing incredulity, Paul.
That's right.
It just they're very, very frustrated that you just can't get this shit right. What is wrong with you? I guess we're here to find out. I'm not a New Testament guy, although it sure does feel like I do a lot of this lately. I have a video coming out. It's on my Patreon now, all about the New Testament and slavery. But to be fair, I consulted with another New Testament specialist, Christy Cobb. So I wanted to get in touch with CJ now, and he's probably never going to take my calls ever again, because it's like this is the second time I think that we're looking at something from Inspiring Philosophy. But here we are.
We should mix it up a bit next time.
Yeah, maybe we should. So I guess without further digressions, we should get into this.
One more ado. One more
ado. Okay.
For 5.
Oh.
Weirdo CK Evan asks, Paul and CJ, what hockey team or teams do you root for? And are you
God,
loyal to
don't
your
ask that
province, unlike a certain traitor who has written no books?
You're not going to like my answer. Paul, do you want to go first? They're not going to like my answer.
Your answer is you don't care, right?
Yeah, I don't really watch hockey. I liked the Leafs when I was a kid because everybody around me liked the Leafs.
Everyone did.
What I needed to do. Yeah. So
that's
I'm a lifelong Oiler fan, and that's a painful. And it's a different. Oh, I know. So Kipp and I, it's just pain. Actually, just caring about anything in general is just pain. So I don't recommend you care about things.
No.
Don't expect good things. Yeah, it's all bad.
I don't know.
And I'm also not loyal. Like I grew up in Saskatchewan, so my loyal to my province. We didn't have a hockey team, so Edmonton was the closest.
I don't know if you're like me, Paul, in that the pain is so excruciating that as you get older, I find that I care a hell of a lot less than I did 20 years ago.
I wish I could make that true for myself.
Boy. Okay. And also, I would like to point out that I am not a traitor to my province. My current province is adopted. I was born and raised in Calgary, and it's just it's always just going to be that way. I was there when the Flames arrived, and that's how that happened. So yeah. IP watches it later looking for clips, and it's just 3 hours of arguing about
Well, that'll make Gary Habermas watch. That's one of the things
that's true. That's true.
And I still open Gary. Gary and I wants to work with me and have a Hockey in the Resurrection podcast.
Yeah,
Gary, I'm open.
We need this to happen now.
Yeah.
Man, I am.
Name it. I'm thinking like some sort of pun on like scoring a goal and rising up. There's got to be something.
Yeah, there's probably some creative. Let us know. Raise the cup. I don't know. Something. We'll do something. So figure it out.
So I think he's a Wings fan, isn't he?
Yes.
Habermas. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well. let's get the video on stage, and so there's several things that we're going to cover today. At the beginning of this video, these guys talk a lot about undesigned coincidences, and I've made this decision that at this point I am refusing to call it the maximal data case, because it's just maximal data is to creation, it is to undesigned coincidences what intelligent design is to the other one, creationism. And yes, that's exactly it. That's all it is. Paul has a jingle for that. God damn, I should have asked you for the jingle.
Yeah, you should get that on the soundboard.
Yeah, I should.
Yeah.
Yep.
And if you send it to me, I can put it on the soundboard for today.
Yes. Let's do that. That sounds good. So they're gonna talk about undesigned coincidences for a bit. They're going to talk about the idea of Occam's razor and the empty tomb and some other stuff too. But
have you had Nick Meader? Does your audience know who Nick Meader is?
Maybe not. Do you want to? You're more familiar with this
Yeah.
guy
So Nick Meader recently wrote in the last year and a half he wrote a book on the resurrection, which is how I came to know about him. He is a data researcher, data cruncher in the field of psychology. So he has both background in statistical analysis, but also in some psychology. And that's his unique take. For those of you in my audience, his main thing is he partners up with Andrew Loke a lot, and they do things together. And so my audience will know to that level. They've published peer-reviewed stuff together. So anyway, he comes at this from the general premise that psychology rules out something like my minimal witnesses hypothesis. Anything where you're trying to say that anything that any of the disciples' experiences was non-veridical, he's going to try to use his background to say that was nonsense. So that's his general shtick.
Boy. Wow. Thanks.
Yeah.
And you probably, I expect CJ's never heard of Nick Meader before at all.
I saw Paul's video too about it. But otherwise, no.
There you go. Otherwise, no. So,
Okay.
and
ready when y'all are.
yeah. All right. Let's hit play. And whenever you guys need to stop the video, just let me know. Let Vish know, because she's running things around here. So.
Yeah, flail wildly or blurt out an expletive,
Paul seems to be arguing. It's like Peter and Paul each had an experience, then they convinced others, and then it seems as though Paul says everything else just kind of comes from legendary development, which I don't think that works. We'll get into that though here. Let's move here to this part.
Critiquing the minimal witnesses hypothesis. I am attempting to explain the origins of a religion, and part of that explanation is that unreliable gospels were written, just like all religions that Mike rejects have unreliable texts. This is the strength of resurrection scholar Gary Habermas's minimal facts argument. He acknowledges that skeptics don't think the gospels are reliable.
Maybe if you start with like the minimal facts, it's going to be an easier job for the skeptic. But I think even on that, you're going to have some problems.
It's still tricky. Yeah.
It's still tricky. Yeah. It's not going to be the easiest thing in the world.
But that's not the criteria that Mike or Nick will use to critique me. They want a naturalistic explanation to allow for every detail in the Gospels to be accurate. If the alternative requires the Bible to be wrong about something, then they reject it out of hand.
I mean, one of my things is that...
How does he still not understand the max data case?
Yeah. We're not saying everything has to be accurate. We're saying it's reliable. And also, we have argued extensively already that, hey, we do have good reliability for the Gospels. I kind of feel like he just kind of presented it as if we just assume that. Dan,
Do any of you know what the difference is between reliability and like true or accurate?
He makes it sort of. He goes on to make it, I think, right? It's. I don't agree with it, but he makes a distinction.
Okay.
You want to go over the maximal case and just sort of clarify here?
Nick, tell me if you have interpreted Paul a little differently than I am here. But it seems like he still thinks that the max data case is us saying that when the Gospels are reporting that so and so experienced touching the wounds of Jesus or something like that, that claim is identical to the claim of them testifying that they experienced such and such a thing. Because the Max Data case is saying, hey, the Gospels are reliable, therefore we have the access to what the original witnesses testified to and what they claim to have experienced. But that is not equivalent to the claim of the Gospels are recording what they actually experienced. And so on the Max Data case, we're saying, hey, we have all these claims from these reliable documents of all these people saying that they had these multi-sensory experiences. What explains all of this testimony of what they claim to have experienced? We are not trying to explain the fact that they did experience those things. That is the resurrection hypothesis.
Is that I'm not
I'm sure that
Probably a
made
good
sense
place
to
to
him, but
pause there. Was this news to I'm interested, Paul, because they seem to think that you confused this point.
This is not news. I understand. Like, they keep trying to nuance it, and every time I hear the nuanced description, I just hear distinction without a difference.
Right?
Like it's like, because you're essentially still rejecting, for example, hallucinations, because, well, you can't have group hallucinations. It's like, well, I don't think there were any groups. And he's like, well, we're not saying it's inerrant. And I'm like, well, I don't care about whatever gradient you are on the thing. You've come into this presupposing that someone said that there were group appearances, and I'm not convinced that anyone did. So no, I mean the nuance is very important to them. I wish I got why it was so important to them. But to me, it's, and that's one of the reasons I came on today, was to punt to you guys. Is like, am I missing something, or is this a distinction without a difference?
I feel like it's a distinction without a difference. Go ahead, CJ.
Well, I was gonna like, Vish's question was really good too, about like how they're distinguishing between facts and, oh shit, I just blanked on the other word. What was the first thing he said?
Reliability and truth.
Reliability.
Truth. Sorry, that's it. Reliability. Although they do talk a lot about facts later. But I think by this criteria, based on what we know about the Gospels, I wouldn't give the Gospels the reliability criteria either. Like, they're much later literature. Right. We don't know where they come from. We know very little about them. They only show up in 4 at the end of the 2nd century. Justin Martyr seems to know a couple that could be our Gospels, but he seems to know something a little bit different too. Like, these are the questions that, like, there's no claim in the Gospel that any of this is something people experienced or saw or whatever. It's just literature. It's just like, I hand you Harry Potter and you infer, like, therefore this is a story about, like, there's a real wizard school in the UK and I have to go try and find it, right? Like, there's just not those claims there. I would agree with, like, Paul, 1 Corinthians 15. Now, that, I guess, by their definition, would actually fit the criteria for, like, something Paul is claiming to experience. So I would give that as like, I guess that kind of fits what they're saying. But the Gospels are not, like, it's just, yeah, and it is a distinction without a difference too. But
I think, like, you make the shoot. No, I just blanked on what I was going to say. That's inconvenient. Crap. Now I don't remember. But it was very important. It was going to be addressed to Paul. So maybe
the distinction, well, I guess, was it about whether I'm missing the boat on whether reliability and describing that? Well, I mean, he's trying to say, we're just trying to explain how come there's reliable stories about people sticking their fingers in Jesus. And I'm just trying to say, well, I'm just trying to explain why there are stories about people sticking their fingers in Jesus, set aside whether they're reliable or not, right?
Yeah. Which is essentially, I mean, that's what scholars are doing, even though you're not one. And I just remembered, but you're just following the cues of what scholars are doing. Like,
I try.
What people should do. I just remembered what it was. You make this point quite often, and it's a very important one, because they want to talk about reliability as this, like, global collective thing. The Gospels are reliable.
Right. Yes.
It's just not. it's you make this point on a regular basis in your videos, and it's a good one, that this is not like, we don't set global parameters to say I'm rubber stamping Josephus. It's reliable. Ta-da! No, these are everything. All pieces of literature. You don't do this to Plutarch. You don't do this to Herodotus. You don't do this to.
Well, you don't even do this to a phone book, right? Like, is a phone book reliable? Like, well, some of the numbers are right and some of them are wrong. Like, it's yeah, or the newspaper or Wikipedia. Yeah,
phone books were gigantic volumes of people's names, addresses, and phone numbers that we used to read back in, or you used to read. No, we didn't read them. Or rip in half.
No, it like super fun when he was a kid.
It's a very fun kid. So yeah. But yeah.
I was just gonna say too, I mean, there's no methodology. Like, the question of gospels are reliable, to your point, Kipp, which is really important. It's a slippage that you hear a lot in apologetics that doesn't make sense as a historical question. There's no historian saying, are these reliable? Like, you could look at an individual claim and say, like, is this reliable? Is this historically plausible? Whatever. And some of it would be in the gospels, but exactly right. We wouldn't take all four and say, like, because this one thing is right, they're all reliable. Like, none of us would do that with any other source.
And on that point, I'm looking at you, Wes Huff, and your supposed, PhD work in the reliability of the Gospels. Nope. That's not a thing. So, yeah, I think, if you, I think we can continue.
Minimal witness guy or minimal facts guy. I think we should use maximal facts for the resurrection. And you're on the same page there, which is great. But I mean, and if that's the case, the Gospels are reliable. We have the disciples and the women experiencing on a naturalistic hypothesis, a hallucination of Jesus. That is, they're hearing his voice, they're able to touch him, they're seeing too. So this is multi-sensory.
If you've already concluded that the Gospels are so reliable that these kind of details cannot be false, then you're not actively entertaining any naturalistic hypothesis in any kind of intellectually honest way. The author of Luke Acts explicitly declares several times that God raised Jesus from the dead. Every possible naturalistic hypothesis must definitionally conflict with the Gospels at some point. And so if you start with Mike's maximal data, you are also a priori rejecting the entire category of natural hypotheses out of hand.
This is, I think, that one of the biggest disconnects between us and Paul, and he's not getting. He's confusing two different categories. He's confusing reliability with truthfulness. This is a basic philosophical error. There's a difference between truthfulness of a document and reliability of a document. We are arguing, when we have the maximal case, that the Gospels and the New Testament at large is reliable to what the eyewitnesses and the early church preached. That doesn't mean we are granting truthfulness there. We're granting reliability. They go back to Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. They go back to Paul. That's where these documents come from. Then
he's using that as a synonym for consistent. He's saying it's reliable. It goes back to the Gospels. This is the same testimony and what people were saying they saw, and that's just consistent. That doesn't mean that it happened. I also think that you would get that as a philosopher, but I liked this.
I also think
reliability shouldn't require harmonizing contradictions.
Yeah. I also think that one of the things that I expect we're going to spend a fair bit of time talking about today, and CJ as the one with the New Testament bona fides here, like there is an ongoing question, open question about like this: are the Gospels even accurately reflecting the things that the earliest Christians were proclaiming and saying about Jesus? There is a gap between the earliest forms of Christianity that emerged in those first few decades and Paul's spin on this and everything that kind of happened after that fact. Am I wrong about that?
No,
Like-
no, I think that's accurate. I think too, like, I'm not sure how much, because there's kind of the two questions. Like the one is the historical question they're giving us about the reliability, and the other one is the philosophical question. And the philosophical bullshit kind of makes my head spin. I'm not much of a philosopher,
too.
but I also
No.
just think it's not a very good argument. So I think maybe that's why I'm missing it too. But I mean, in terms of like, yeah, the reliability, all that question, like, I think it's important to set the stage for all of the conversation we're going to have today, that all of these texts that they're going to focus on are some of the most contested texts in the New Testament. If you look at the 2nd century of Christianity, virtually, like, the huge kind of Christological controversies in the 2nd century are about whether or not Jesus is a physical being or a spiritual being. And whether, so there's like Marcion thinks Jesus kind of like appeared on earth and like didn't have a birth. And like, what do you get? You get gospels that have virgin birth stories, you know? So like what you're actually seeing in the gospels is you're not just seeing like works of literature that were written in memory because something happened and then they're carried forward. You're getting works that are adapted as time goes on. And this is like Bart Ehrman's famous Orthodox corruption of scripture. He kind of shows this. And I think one of the important case studies is like in Luke, is it Luke 24 when it's like touch my hands and my feet or whatever it is? Like that's famously one of the things that's probably not original. Like I think it's Codex Beatse. I'm hoping I'm getting all this right. Somebody can fact check me. But there are early manuscripts that don't have that. So it seems to have been inserted in to address these Christological controversies in the 2nd century. So this is where you start to like, when you just act like this book like was written in the 1st century and was just copied accurately, and like there's so many layers to this we have to look at. Like, are they telling the truth in the first place? Sure. Are we seeing what the earliest gospel writers wrote? Sure. Have the scribes changed things? Have like there's all of these layers of questions that we would need to address. And then, yeah, I mean, you obviously get development between Paul and 1 Corinthians 15 and Jesus walking around eating fish and doing all that kind of stuff, you know? So like there is obviously some kind of development. So like this is kind of the different levels of the problem that I think we need to consider as we're listening to them talk about these, as if this is a uniform, like one big body of facts we just need to take seriously and weigh all these facts. Well, no, not all these facts are created equally. You know, some are probably 2nd century insertions and some might be Paul's visions. Like it's all kind of jumbled. So hopefully that made sense. I'll shut up.
Do you think that I'm correct in saying, like, regardless of how you get to this conclusion, if you have concluded, rightly or wrongly, that Matthew and John, the two firsthand people, are recording in their gospels that Thomas stuck a finger in the side, like if you're that far into it, are you at that point in good faith even ever considering a naturalistic explanation?
Like,
Go ahead.
no, I would have to say no, right? Because like that, like how do you get to that point on a naturalistic trajectory? Maybe that's where you're at with this too, but like those things don't happen. So it's going to be it's going to have to rise to a much higher level than John wrote this in his last written gospel, which might have been written like many decades after the events it purports to attest to, and a whole lot of development has taken place in the interim, and we can read the Gospel of John and see the literary craftsmanship that is at work to,
and the last chapter is probably tagged on.
Oh,
sorry to interrupt.
That too, right? No,
Yeah,
I think is that the part with the Thomas?
No,
no.
The wounds? Oh, okay,
No,
but yeah, all right.
But the last chapter is where he eats fish and does that kind of stuff. So there
I
is
do
like,
wanna,
yeah.
Remind everybody that, as we discovered several weeks ago, the narrative doesn't actually say that Thomas touched Jesus's wounds.
I was on for that
Jesus
one.
says, "Hey, touch them," But
Yeah,
That's right.
Thomas just sees him and goes, "Whoa!" And then
And
Jesus'
the lesson
response,
for the reader. Yeah, sorry.
don't assume. And then Jesus' response is, "You believe because you have seen, not touched, seen. Blessed are those who believe without seeing,
Seeing.
not without touching." So again, don't assume too much. And like, yeah, the chat was saying the Caravaggio painting is pretty cool, and it is. But
Yeah, Caravaggio is
Yeah.
awesome. I was going to say in response to Paul's point, I think it's like you're painted into a really difficult circle if you're never allowed to say that it's legendary. And like, what would we give that to any other religion? Like, if I say to you, Joseph Smith found golden plates, an angel gave them. How do you explain that? And you can't say it's made up. Like,
Right? Yeah.
virtually,
Mhm.
like everyone says. Well, not everyone. Mormons don't, but like these evangelical Christians would say that.
If it wasn't an angel, where did he get the plates, man? Where did he get them?
plot hole.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when I look at the ancient world and I see, hundreds of these types of stories from both within Jewish traditions and outside of Jewish traditions, I don't look at all of these stories and say like, oh, miraculous healings. Oh, the Sybil can see the future. Oh, like I say that's made up. It's invented. And I think it's really disingenuous to pretend that that we owe the Gospels some sort of different level of like. I've talked a bit on my channel lately about the so-called conservative methodology that I just don't think exists because nobody actually does this. Like, we all have credulity when it comes to incredulity when it comes to exceptional stories that aren't within our tradition, and then all of a sudden people hear stories that they've heard since they were kids and like, yeah, that makes sense. Like, eat my body, drink my blood. Yeah, okay. Like, I don't know.
But also it's not just the credulity thing, it's special pleading. Well, everyone else is writing their mythology and legends, and that's not real, and that didn't happen. But ours did, because reasons.
Or demons. Sometimes people will say, oh yeah, we do accept that other things existed, but it was demons.
They saw visions, but it was demons. They had miracles, but it was demons. Like, okay.
Anyway, I'm with you, Paul.
Thank you.
We're with you.
So far, we'll see where
We'll see.
Question arises. Okay.
Yeah,
if these are
it's either
reliable,
100% I'm good or I'm not.
Yeah, exactly.
Either Apologia is reliable
right,
or I'm not.
Is it right? Or yeah.
No middle sliders.
Maximum apologia hypothesis.
That's right.
Yeah.
also true. Paul has equated the two of them. That's not the argument here. So this is complete. This is one of the biggest problems in his reply, assuming that we're just throwing out natural explanations. We're not. We're saying, okay, fine. If we have all this reliable data, now the question becomes are there any good natural explanations that can account for all of the data and be plausible and be at least ad hoc? This is what he doesn't seem to get.
What do you think you have in terms of reliable data? Like, to my way of thinking, this is all the credit to you, Paul, for like attempting to take this nonsense seriously, because these are not serious people, and this is not anything serious. You don't even get to step one because you are taking for granted this thing, gospel reliability. You're not even close. Like, you're not even in the ballpark. The ways in which scholars speak about the Gospels, we're in a situation now where the quests for the historical Jesus have pretty well run their course because there's not much more to say. We're in a point now where almost all the academic engagement with the gospel literature is on that level, as carefully crafted theological narratives, from which maybe there's historical events or things that happened behind these texts at some point, but there's no way to access this stuff. Like, it's just not. We're so far past that this, to my way of thinking, this is the problem with so-called undesigned coincidences. This is why there hasn't been any scholarly investigation of these things since the 19th century, really, because we are just not there anymore. I don't know, CJ, had you even heard of undesigned coincidences before entering apologetic spaces?
No, no, but
Right,
I
like it just
yeah, I was reading. I don't remember who it was. I was reading a book on Acts from like the 1940s, and it did use the word, but I don't remember what it was now.
interesting.
But and like a scholarly work. Yeah, no, I hadn't heard of it, but I did do a fun video on the undesigned coincidences in the stories of Romulus and Romulus's resurrection. Like I think it's
so good.
like, so that's like it's the question of data. Like the way they use this word data really bugs me, because it's like,
Me too.
I'm counting. I'll hold up my hand here. It's like if I'm sorry, we get into frame. If I'm counting, I have like what the stories say, one point of data. But then there's like the evolution of the stories, the transmission of manuscripts, the historical context of the ancient world, like all of these things. And they're like, why won't you look at the data? Like the one thing that they actually look at and don't actually consider all of the other things that should be data. Like it should be data that these stories are everywhere. It should be data.
Well,
that
that's
we
the
have works
thing.
in the Gospels.
The plural of anecdote is not data. And that's something they don't seem to understand. There's a lot of anecdotes from several different authors over several decades and possibly a century, but that doesn't make it data.
When I was deconverting and trying to actually go through this for the first time, like, so I came out of my young earth creationist stuff. And of course, Christianity can survive accepting evolution, all that kind of stuff, right? It absolutely can. But for me, then it was like, okay, well, what is the data that I want to go forward in looking at the New Testament? And honestly, the only data I thought I could accept was, well, the church exists, like the religion came to be, and Gospels exist. And it's like, well, that's the data that everyone accepts. They exist.
Yep.
So everything else beyond that is not data. It's gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, back to it.
You got to have a theory that has explanatory scope and power. This is what Paul was talking about earlier when he said we need to go on what is the simplest explanation if we're going to invoke Occam's razor.
This was one of the things that bugged me, but like, you don't have to have a theory. This is the irony, is like when you start as a modern evangelical reader, then you got to have a theory that explains it, because if you tell us we're wrong, we're going to lose our shit. But it's like, you don't have to have a theory. Like it could just be that we have these stories and maybe we're never really going to know why they were invented. It's just like, you don't have to have a theory. Historians deal with this. Like we don't have to have a theory for like whether or not, I guess Socrates is a bad example. People do theorize that, but hopefully you get what I'm saying.
So there's so many examples of pieces of ancient literature that scholars just continue to grapple with determining what they are and what the point is. Like so much. I'm just thinking like one of my favorite ones within my own field is the Copper Scroll. 3 meters of thinly beaten copper that's been inscribed with text instructions for finding basically buried temple treasures. It seems. What the hell is this manuscript? What is this text? Well, we don't know. We just don't. And scholars throw out ideas, educated, very educated, sensible, but in the end, guesses about what this text is. There is no conclusion about this. There are working ideas about what it is. You can approach so many different texts from antiquity with these same questions and still not figure it out why anybody chose to write this particular thing down, or what the purpose of this particular text was imagined to serve. You're absolutely right about that.
Is the Copper Scroll reliable, or is it accurate?
Is it reliable or is it truthful?
Like what?
On both, and on both counts, right? Like like this is just not a question. Like scholars have asked the question: is this a real? Is this an actual inventory of temple treasures? That's as far as the question goes, and the answer is we don't know. We just don't, right? Like, and there's no way to
Unacceptable.
find out.
But Kipp, what if some of it was an actual depiction of treasure and some of it was an exaggeration? Then what do you do?
I don't know,
Oh.
right? Then you like, do you throw out the whole thing?
Yeah.
Or
I love
that
this.
too,
Bait-
yes, a reliable contender.
What you say.
At some point, he criticizes me for. He laughs at me, like literally, they're scoffing for. Oh, he's probably one of those pericope by pericope guys. I'm like, yeah, isn't that what everyone does? But okay.
Yeah, I actually think I didn't include that in the clips that I stitched together. But man, that
Anyway,
yeah.
Okay. Back to it.
But again, Occam's razor, going back to Paul's own criteria now, Occam's razor is going to invoke the simplest explanation that can account for all the data. What he just presented does not account for all of our available data. It does
Again, just for the cheap seats in the back, the plural of anecdote is not data. Just gonna throw that back out there, just real quick.
doesn't even deal if we set the Gospels to the side and only use them minimally.
Yeah.
Because again, we have earliest data like the Creed of 1 Corinthians 15, the early sermons that are preserved in Acts. We have that data that shows that Jesus is appearing to multiple people in group settings, multiple witnesses. I mean, even just on the early creed, he's appearing to the apostles, the disciples, James, Peter. His explanation doesn't account for all of the data here.
No, yeah, his model's built on a model of the modeling of the Gospels in Acts that is not worst case scenario reliability, but like just very, very low view of the reliability of the gospel, such that the data that it's trying to explain is very minimal. And so given that background assumption, the minimal witnesses model does explain all the data, but we are at a fundamental disagreement about how to model the gospels and therefore what the data that is in need of explanation actually is.
Yes.
He doesn't mention social contagion. Is that what he's relying on as well? I don't know.
I would assume that's going to be part of it, right? Like
yeah.
Peter had a grief hallucination, and then that grief hallucination sparked him to talk about something this, right? And then through the process of social contagion, other people started talking about it, and maybe somebody else decided but that's very similar to something that others would call the RHBS model, like a reburial hypothesis with one of the women having a hallucination, and then
let's stop it there because maybe that's worthwhile pointing out the differences here, Paul.
Yeah, James Fodor's RHBS, you mean?
Yeah,
so I'm not going to get this exactly right. It's my apologies, James, but his model wants to account for an empty tomb because he wrote his as an exact polemic against William Lane Craig's resurrection argument. And since William Lane Craig's resurrection argument includes an empty tomb, he wants to include a resurrection, an empty tomb. So he thinks in his RHBS there's a reburial, and then I forget what the rest stands for.
Hallucination.
Oh, hallucinations. That's right. So right. So there's, but as James would point out, the empty tomb didn't convince anyone in the Gospels alone that there was resurrection. So you actually then needed to have hallucination, and then bias and socialization. So I guess I shouldn't poo-poo it. Once you get to the hallucination part, I guess it probably is similar. But I think James wants to account for there being group hallucinations, which I don't acknowledge. So
yeah,
but someone in the chat can let me know if I got any of that wrong.
And the empty tomb, like that's a critical piece too, right? Just because, and I'm on the same page with you that I feel like that is an element of the story that is dismissed fairly early on. Like there are, as you know, there are perfectly plausible, very well articulated explanations for the emergence of an empty tomb myth within scholarship, like lots of them. Like this isn't something that scholars have just gone, oh wow, I don't know what to do.
Although I've kind of grown to like my way of explaining it over like a John Dominic Crossan or a Richard Carrier. Like I think their ways of explaining it aren't that palpable to Christians. They're kind of dismissive and hand wavy, even Bart's. So if my book ever comes out, that's the chapter I like.
The one chapter.
No,
You like.
out of 15 or 17, yeah.
One thing I could say, I don't remember if we're going to get to it later though, is about 1 Corinthians 15 actually does sound like it's about visions. Do we talk about that later? Or?
I mean, we could talk about it now, honestly. Okay. I just and
I don't want to sidetrack from the psychology discussions and the
I think we're skipping all the psychology stuff, right?
I think so. Yeah.
Yep.
So in fact, we might. Yeah. Maybe I don't know if maybe we want to. That might be something we want to do too. Is just jump ahead to where they start talking about the empty tomb, which I think the timestamp there. You've got it right, Vish. Actually no, we should probably maybe just jump ahead to 11:28 on the video, because this is really important to them too. This point that apparently and you conceded the Maximal case.
Can I just point out that we played the clip where Than actually said, according to the data that Paul is trying to consider, he does explain the data.
Yes.
Yeah. We're just trying.
But as Shannon said, it doesn't fit their theology, so they're tossing it.
Obviously, any groups of people that are right. If any groups of people are trying to explain different sets of data, well, of course, you're not even. That's my whole point. We're not having the same conversation in any meaningful way. So.
In many ways, though, I feel like in this video, Than probably gets things more than the. There were several times I was like, where Than would say things like that, or say things like, the problem is they're just not going to, start even considering taking the gospel seriously historically. That's a problem. Yes. You're right, Than. On many points here, you are absolutely correct on where the differences are and what the problems are in terms of the way that that scholars are approaching this. So maybe just jump ahead to what was the one I said? 11.
Plus the fact that
11 something.
They want to sit here and talk about reliability and all these other things, and I'm like, you can't even get a census right. You can't get the governor of a province right. Your dates don't line up for who's in charge. So what are you talking about reliable? That's not reliable. That's wrong.
Yeah, I was going to say,
factually.
Like, it's interesting. Like, they don't actually seem to have none of them are qualified to assess reliability. Like, they don't have a New Testament scholar here. They don't have anybody who actually understands
with any kind of
this world. It's like sitting here and let's talk about philosophy and let's talk about psychology, and like both, valuable fields in their own right. But if you're assessing data and you don't even know how to tell what's the difference between data and like what is the data, you don't even know how to tell, because like, to sound a little bit snobby, I don't think any of them read Greek. I don't think any of them like have languages or have,
Stan does.
The skill set. Oh, does he? Okay. Apologies.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I guess maybe, is that, I don't know if that's a Greek
that's the thing.
Anyway.
I was talking about philosophy only because when you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's like, you need to, like, at some point you have to have the ability to assess what is actually, what are facts, and without the historical methods that they're already kind of poo-pooing, you can't actually figure out what the facts are.
Do even Bayesian, bro.
Once I decide what I want to believe, I always use a Bayesian analysis to get
that's
all right.
Okay.
Test it.
Problem that we're having here. Are there any studies that show, hallucinations happen where people think their loved one physically rose from the dead in their actual flesh and bone body, and they had multisensory hallucinations? I mean, like, does that happen?
I mean, you do occasionally have like multimodal hallucinations, in the literature, but there's not a sense that they're not.
Confused apologists are always hyper-focused on multimodality because they're under the mistaken impression that natural hypotheses would agree with and are attempting to explain Bible stories of group hangouts, having conversations, eating fish, and putting fingers in wounds. I don't think any of those things happened.
Well, I actually played this a couple times, and I was like, I think he kind of just conceded the maximal case here because he's not attempting to explain that data. Okay, then you don't have an explanation that can account for all the data to compete with the resurrection hypothesis. If you're saying, well, I don't need to explain that kind of stuff, I can just dismiss it as all legendary development. There are so many points we can bring up that you need to account for, like the onomastic congruence and the reliability of the Gospels, like the fact that there are early reports of multimodal experiences in group settings. We're not saying, like Gary Habermas, that all he's going to posit is Jesus died and that Paul experienced something and maybe Peter experienced. Like we're positing a lot more. If that's the case, it kind of sounds like you're accidentally conceding the point that the maximal case is successful. And again, if we can clear up that issue of confusing reliability and truthfulness, because once we get over that, which we've already done, now we get to the actual data that needs to be explained. If you're just going to say, I'm not going to explain it, I don't need to, it sounds like you're conceding the maximal case, and that's what we...
Mike can't explain how the moon was split in the Quran, so he's just conceding that point.
Yep.
Perhaps.
And as someone else noted, you can have multisensory hallucinations from just sleep deprivation.
Yeah.
Like walking around in the desert. The Judean desert. I'd have hallucinations hanging out there for too long without water.
True. That's true. This is the part of the video where CJ was really losing
I was so mad. I was looking back in our chat. I was like, I watched it like 4 times. I read the transcript, but like I still don't understand it. I'm not even trying to understand it now. I kind of wrote it down because I can't find it in our chat anyway. But I don't really, I don't understand. If somebody wants to understand it to me, who's
I mean, from my part, I just keep coming back to they're mad that you're not taking them seriously, they're mad that you are just saying that you're saying, we just can't depend on the presentation of the Gospels for our historical reconstruction of the events and the origins.
We have an
of history.
anecdote. This proves reliability. As someone who stayed up past 48 hours, yes, you can have multisensory hallucinations. Bam, true.
Well, and to be fair, Nick Meader actually has many times on all these videos conceded when people try and he's like, people have multimodal hallucinations. That's definitely a thing, and they weren't trying to deny that was the case. They just don't think it can all converge in groups and eating food and things. They want to add on all those other things to make it not work.
Yeah. They're like, well, multimodal hallucinations don't explain people eating food with Jesus. Meanwhile, they're taking for granted the quote fact that Jesus sat there and ate food after he resurrected.
Right,
and I'm
exactly.
like, you're having the wrong conversation there, bud.
Yeah. But that's their complaint, right? Is that I don't accept that someone who was there very earnestly said that they were eating fish with risen Jesus.
Yeah.
Yes.
The core of it is what you need to be talking about.
And I guess that's where I conceded. I guess I'm with CJ. I don't actually know what I conceded.
I was like, I think it's that they said, how do you explain these things? And they're like, how do you explain these things? And you can't say they're legend. And then if you don't answer, then you concede.
Yeah.
That's it, right? So
again, just look back on them and ask them how the moon was split.
Yeah.
If they can't explain it without saying legend, then
but onomastic congruence. So
right. Do you want to maybe that's a term that people in the audience are unfamiliar with?
Did he say that in this clip? I think he did, right? Was that one of the things
said
he could bring up?
Yeah,
he said it. He says it several times, but this is one of the several times.
And I think in his list he named 1 Corinthians 15 like 3 times there. But anyway,
that's true too. No,
someone explain it for the folks in the audience or who go watch this later so that they know.
Yeah.
CJ.
So Yeah,
you want me to jump in?
I vote for CJ too.
Well, okay, but there was some scholarship on this Paul had read and I hadn't, so Paul, feel free to help me out if I miss some stuff. But onomastics, it's the study of names in antiquity. It's we can learn a lot from names. Like when I was studying Jewish communities in Egypt and papyri, you can often see like cool like Jewish names in papyri. You can see them doing cool things with names. Like sometimes, what was my favorite example is like that you can see them take Greek names that have like sort of Jewish background. So like the name like Jonathan could become like Theodorus, which is both like gift of God. So like the Greek becomes like a kind of an adaptation of the Hebrew. So stuff like that. So the idea with onomastics, and it honestly is a crapshoot, and not just in Jewish studies, because it becomes really difficult to tell, to use names to tell who people are. So like what happens if there's a Jewish family, let's say in Egypt, because that's where we have all these records from, and all of a sudden they name their kid like Philostratus or something or Dionysius, like all of a sudden, just because they've done that, we can't see them anymore in the records. So because that's now a Greek name. So if I find an inscription and it's to Dionysius, I'm gonna be like, oh, there's a Jewish guy, or sorry, like a Greek guy, Greco-Egyptian or something, right? So it's that's the problem with the field in general. So what I think I like the argument.
Well, let me give a dumb guy version of what it is, because you're explaining it already. The dumb guy version is that that the names in the Gospels, the names of the characters comports well to archaeological evidence about the names that people were using in the area and the time.
Yeah. And
so what they're saying is, well, if it was written far away, like if I tried to write a story right now set in some random place, and I don't use internet data to figure it out. If I try to write a letter in France and I just say it's Jacques, but I can pick out a few, but I don't know the rest of the names. They're just saying they've done studies, and that the Gospels, are really good at naming the names. And so anyway, you have other explanations as to why that can be, but that's the argument.
Yeah, no, that's really good. And I was getting off in a lecture that I have no business giving right now. So all that to say, often the names come in diaspora too. So saying like these names are original to, like these names somehow prove the Gospels are written. I'm not saying they're not. Like these could be stories that have authentic roots in Palestine. It's just the question is like, how do you tell the difference between what's authentic? You just can't. The names are not enough evidence. And then the flip side, the one thing I said in our chat, because we were talking about this, is authors will often play up ethnic identity. Yeah. So like if you're writing a story about Phoenicians or something, you might use really Phoenician names, and they do really Phoenician things because it makes them sound really Phoenician. That's how you write a story. So if somebody in Rome,
Robert.
Yeah, like if somebody's doing this, it is feasible that it could. I'm not saying one or another. I don't think it proves anything or disproves anything. But then to Paul's point, like if I was writing a story about France 100 years ago, and I would be like, okay, my story is going to have Pierre in it and Marie, and like I'd probably be right on like 75% of those names. Not because I lived in France 100 years ago, but because I live near a French community not too far away that does have roots there, and like all that kind of thing. I've seen some French movies, so I guess that wouldn't apply to antiquity. But anyway, it's not a perfect science for sure.
So this is an old argument from Richard Bauckham. Of his famous study. But then in 2024, Camille Greger and Brian Blaze actually published a peer-reviewed paper trying to compare the Bauckham study to like other literature. And it was quite devastating, actually, that the Bauckham methodology just doesn't give predictive power of whether something's fiction or not. Yeah. And that kind of got accepted quickly, but the apologists, and specifically Inspiring Philosophy, were very excited because they actually knew that a few months later in 2024 that a guy named Van de Wijk and Wilson, I think, had published a new paper on it, rescuing onomastic congruence, and I'm very excited to. Camille and Brian have kept me in one of their group chats, and so I get to see they're actually responding to it, and to the point that was just made. Like, and you could predict the top few in France, like Pierre, Jacques, whatever. they're actually. I don't want to speak to papers that are not yet published, but it does seem like if you take out the obvious ones like a Simon and a Johannine, that suddenly you're not any better than chance in the Gospels. Like once you take out, the top couple. So anyway, are we all supposed to be impressed that because the names lined up,
it's
that
honestly
Jesus ate fish, right?
The weakest of weak sauce
Yeah.
kind of arguments for any sort of historical reliability. Yeah. So yeah, okay. Let's watch a little bit more.
You want to hear?
Yeah, this is one of the places where I'm really confused on what Paul thinks.
Oh,
Multiple
you can help
times Paul
clear
will say
something
things
in
like,
for
no amount of testimony will ever be enough to justify the occurrence of a miracle, right? But in other places, like their response to my blog post almost a year ago, they said him and Brian have said things like, well, the Max data case cannot be true, right? Because resurrections don't happen. So like the historical reportage model.
Nope. I did not say that.
I remembered
And
those
Brian
differently
did
myself.
not say that.
Clear it up for us, please.
Oh, I would say that I would just never allow that. I would never allow to say that miracles can't happen on my channel. I just because it's just not a supposition I hold. So he's misremembering, misunderstood, or blending in someone else's arguments. But it's neither Brian Blaze nor I said that, and I'm happy for you to clip this against me saying it if you ever find one.
Sounds like
and
a
no amount of
hallucination.
Yeah, we're having one right now.
I do say no amount of testimony can affirm a miracle. I actually if someone wants to fight me on that philosophy, that's fine.
On its own,
but they do the same.
Testimony on its own, right? Testimony alone
on its own.
will
But
never
they
be
do the
sufficient.
same for every other religious tradition, and even among Christians, we do the same for like the wacky Pentecostal friend who thinks that.
But let's get real here. From an historical perspective, from a scholarly New Testament perspective, I mean that's fine, but you don't even have testimonies, like really. That you have to clear that hurdle first. You have to convince the world that you've got testimonies. I think when they make statements like, what would it take? A good starting point would be an actual fucking testimony to the resurrection of Jesus, which is not something that we have. Am I wrong about that?
Well, we have a guy 3 years later who saw something, who looked like the guy he'd never met.
Can't make that up.
Yeah, that was something else that came up in the chat is, the alleged crowd of hundreds that saw Jesus. It's like, how did anybody know what he looks like? Did they pass around a photo?
It is the interesting, like that's the one testimony, right? That's First Corinthians 15.
The First Corinthians 15.
And that's where I know, like Paul, you get Peter and Paul, right? The two witnesses there, maybe 500 others, but this is my soapbox.
Right?
I just want to actually clarify that is not where I get that from.
Okay.
No, I get that from Galatians. I treat Galatians as Paul's actual history, and what's in First Corinthians, is what he received from others. He's passing along what I received. I pass along to you as a first importance, right? Like so. It's anyway.
No, that's important for sure. Okay, that's helpful. What I was going to say, I think I said this in our last stream too, but the Greek word there is ophthe in 1 Corinthians 15. So it's the verb is horao, which just means to see, but this specific form of the verb ophthe, it's a passive form of the verb, so it literally means like he was seen, I think is the right way to say it. I think even like the King James says that, but we'd say like he appeared to me or something. But the I think that like the sense behind it is like he let himself be seen. Like it's a common way to describe divine appearances. And when you look at the Septuagint, most of the times this word is used, it's for a dream, it's for a vision, let's keep with the dream. Like a lot of them are dreams. A couple of them seem to be appearances of some sort, like a miraculous appearance. What you don't have is that ever being used, as far as I know, for like a physical body. And then Paul goes on. So after describing something that sounds visionary and saying this is what happened to Peter and 500 witnesses and whatever, Paul goes on to say, talking about the resurrection in the rest of that chapter, he talks about how the resurrected body, he's not interested in physical bodies. He says the body will be pneumatikos. It will be a spiritual body, which is really cool. So like, he's not interested in physical bodies. He doesn't want that crap. He wants like a really nice spiritual body. But then you come to Luke 24 and Jesus says, touch me and see that I'm not a pneuma, see that I'm not a spirit. So it actually, those two accounts of the resurrection contradict each other in that point. Paul's not interested in physical bodies. He's interested in spiritual bodies. And Luke, in Luke 24, whoever wrote that wants you to be damn sure it's not a spiritual body, it's a physical body. So there's a weird, like, there's kind of a weird, fun little extra Bible contradiction for your list.
There you go. That's a good one. But this too, I think, falls into ways in which, and especially here, it's very, very important for these guys. They'll, and I don't know how much of this we'll get to, but it's very important for them to make this sharp distinction between what a resurrection is as a physical event, as somebody whose body actually comes back from death and is revitalized, and like pneumatic spiritual appearances, the ghosts and those sorts of things. It's very important for them to make this distinction as a meaningful point in their favor in terms of the appearance of Jesus as something that couldn't be confused for like a spiritual event. They'll do this on the basis of what they think is the common Jewish understanding of what resurrection was in antiquity, in the mid to late Second Temple period. And there's been a lot that's been written about this, in particular in like the last 20 years. And we're at a point here where yes, it seems very clear that certainly among the Pharisees, some of the Pharisees at least, there was this idea circulating that dead bodies were going to become enlivened and come out of the grave and come back to life. But that is not, by any stretch of the imagination, the only thing that Jewish people thought about when they thought about the last days or the end of times, or when they thought about what happened to dead people. The common Jewish understanding seems to be that much more in line with what CJ mentioned, where there is a resurrection of dead people into spiritual bodies of some sort, and they're distant bodies too, like they're out there. It's not. So there's some, I think, there's an important point, that an important historical point that gets missed in some of this, that there seems to be a development somewhere along the way, maybe a particular Christian development, which started to set this really high focus and emphasis on the physicality of the resurrection, which is part of that. Part of I think what you're talking about, CJ, when you look at the discrepancy there between what Paul thinks is going to happen and then what Luke says, that's part of that. Mm-hmm. That so we can't just you can't just hang your hat on this concept of resurrection as if it's neatly defined and it explains everything, because it really doesn't. There's tons of Jewish literature out there that shows that this is a widely there are varied understandings of what resurrection means, whether it's metaphorical even. Is it even just an actual thing, or is this just a literary trope that is used by writers to explain other parts of life and faith.
And of course, yeah, you'd have Richard Miller chiming in, right? That the translation tales, were very, very, very similar to all this too. So
Yeah, exactly. All right.
Do you want me to read some super chats, or do you want to go?
Yeah,
back to
let's
the
do
video?
that. Let's do some super chats.
Because
and
we
then
have had quite a few of those.
Okay, well, we better hit a bunch of those.
Okay, Tree Clem Tad for 5. I'm more interested in if Paul and CJ are maple volcano mythicists.
Oh, God.
That's a little bit of deep lore.
I was gonna say I don't know what a maple volcano is, but it sounds good.
sounds like
So,
something you get at Tim
that
Hortons.
The long story short is that Kipp was skeptical that there are volcanoes in Canada, and they had to do a whole live stream demonstrating that that's not the
Oh.
case.
And
So-
but it was nice. It was good because the live stream actually validated some of my own thinking about volcanoes in Canada.
Now I
That
kind
they're
of
not
want
just
Tim Hortons to make a maple
hot,
volcano.
jaggedy
donut.
rocks.
That
I
sounds good.
know, right? A
Sounds
maple
good.
volcano
Okay, yeah.
donut. I'm into that.
Sounds like a
Yeah.
dessert or
Yeah.
drink.
Yeah. Damn straight.
All right, for $9.99, Chris, you so much better than your earlier live stream today. And Kip, thanks for stepping up and helping out Chris with some readings later this month.
Yeah, excellent for sure.
Yeah.
So that's on your is it your Patreon or your Discord or
Well, I have a little community, so it's Skepe is the name of our community, and that's what I had somebody had to back out, and Dr. Kipp was nice enough to step up, and we're going to read some Dead Sea Scrolls next month. So
yeah, we are. Sounds great.
Dead Sea Scrolls.
Dead Sea Squirrels.
Dead Sea Squirrels.
Mhm.
That's pretty good. For the hockey and resurrection, the cup is risen. That was a suggestion. Yeah. For 5, Jesus got sent to the penalty box for 3 days. It was a day and a half. It was a day
You know,
and
the
a half.
funny thing is, I could hear a
the-
Canadian
the-
evangelist
he-
giving that analogy.
He had I believe that's as an in-person hearing with the Department of Player Safety.
You know who else got sent
Right,
to the
it's-
penalty box?
It's 3 days for high sticking.
Yes.
Sign set up. Hey, Maddie, for 5. I'm happy I got to hang out with y'all this afternoon. Can I get some commiseration for my research funding proposal getting denied today?
Oh, that
Oh,
sucks.
Boo.
God damn.
You must be American.
Yo, she
Yeah, she
fact.
is.
They're just
probably
they're
used
just
the word inclusion somewhere, and it got
well, actually, it almost doesn't matter. It could be cures cancer. Doesn't matter.
doesn't matter.
Anyway,
You didn't tell people to take protein.
let's
supplement,
not bring that
no.
into. That's
No.
my fault. I'm not going to bring that in here. Sorry.
Chrissy for
I
5.
see.
Oh, thank God Kip didn't ask me to be on this. Mike's arrogance is ear grating. Good luck, you 4. I didn't drink enough for this. Yeah. Keep looking at my edibles like right there.
You have to save those for toast to toast.
Yeah,
Are you
I
watching
gotta
or-
save those
didn't
for
notice.
later. I'm going to an event.
Yep.
So I can't be doing this while I'm altered. Katie
right.
Lewis for 10. Sorry I'm late. I was making a video for Nerd Church, attempting to explain Dr. Cornthwaite why Catholics are underrepresented in critical scholarship. Yes, I am shamelessly promoting my channel.
Oh, that's cool. Nerd Church. I'll look it up. I don't know it.
Yeah,
Actually,
it's good.
I'll write it down. I'll look it up after.
I'm now I'm wondering about underrepresentation of Catholics.
like, are they?
Yeah, it's probably true.
'Cause
It
isn't-
might maybe.
No,
I mean, I
that's
know
all
a
okay.
whole bunch.
Well-
I really do.
At
Yeah,
SBL, yeah, but they don't.
Well, yeah,
they don't
SBL.
care as much. They don't care as much about the Bible purely, right? Like,
Oh, some really
Mm.
awesome Catholic
some
biblical. It's
do.
hard to.
Of course there are,
I
but,
don't. I
yeah.
who knows? But yeah. So I
Interesting.
know a bunch. Huh.
Cooper for 5. What do y'all think best explains the data that they say indicates reliability, especially name data than geography or pre-70 buildings, etc.? I mean,
we
I
talked
thought
a little bit
Paul
about
was pretty
names.
clear. Apologia was
right?
saying that this is legendary development largely, but
right?
guess
But they're saying, what do we like if we went and turned around and like reviewed a video about gospel reliability? What would our answers be? I think that's what the question is asking.
Mm.
And I think we gave some general hand waving about onomastic congruence, and I think a lot of their things I don't think their authorship claims are very strong about who wrote the Gospels. I don't think I'm unimpressed. CJ has a great video today about how
Yeah.
you put details in for verisimilitude, right? I think a lot of the stuff in the Gospels that is correct is verisimilitude. I'm also not against there being some kernels of actual stories, right? Like I think the whole I think he probably was from an area called Nazareth, because otherwise it just doesn't make sense if there wasn't a guy from Nazareth. Why are you including that detail if it wasn't actually correct, right? So again, we don't treat them as they're reliable or they're not. Like we don't treat any book, any biography of any other human as if it's 100% true or 100% false. It's claim by claim, and so that's what I would say.
Yeah.
It's really. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Kipp.
No, you go.
I was just going to say it is really an interesting thing, and it's hard. I think when you have these discussions, it almost sometimes feels like you can't. I have to be careful how I say this. I don't want to get clipped here, but like it's when you're dealing with people who are so ideologically driven, like it's hard to like. I would love to look the Gospels. I was interviewing Robin Faith Walsh today on my channel, and this is what she this is what she said. She said like, the Gospels are one of the first places we learn about Pilate, and we have an inscription now that shows that Pilate was a real, was a real person. So it's like stuff like that. It's like, that's awesome. And like, we absolutely should take that seriously. Does it tell us that, that there's a root here of these stories in Judea? Maybe. Like, that's a really interesting possibility, but like, you can't get there if like one historical detail right means everything's right. Like, that's not method. But on the other hand, I love to look at like what's the pool of Siloam is like apparently a real place, right? Like you start to look at some of the stuff. It's like, cool. How'd they know that? I don't know. Maybe there is a story that originates there. Maybe anyway, you take. I think you get my point. But it's fascinating. I think it's just really it's really cool. It doesn't bother me. It's love
I'll
it.
just say Spider-Man fallacy to annoy people.
Yeah, but also like Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter. It has a lot of really accurate stories that we know from Abraham Lincoln's life. Doesn't mean that Abraham Lincoln actually fought vampires.
You can't prove he didn't.
You can't prove he didn't.
Or
that's true. I cannot prove that he didn't.
Maybe even to bring this closer to home, I continue to think that the very best of all the many, 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 many Jesus movies made, wasn't even about Jesus, is The Life of Brian, in large part because there is a I think a much stronger cultural sensitivity and on display in that movie. It gives a stronger, in my opinion, flavor of life in first century Judea than a lot of these films. To the point that it's not narrating actual events or depicting things that actually happen, but there's that flavor there. It's a fictional story, and yet somehow does a better job than a lot of these other Hollywood attempts, right? So.
It makes you think, because it's just funny, and it actually does make you think about things historically. You're like, oh, like that's kind of an observation, and it's if you take these scripture and start from there, like it's a very different picture.
Nobody ever asked me to teach a New Testament course, but I filled in once or twice for some guys in their New Testament classes, and when talking about Jewish sectarianism, I would start with the clip from the Jerusalem Colosseum in The Life of Brian. Just because it so clearly nicely encapsulates the political climate, in a very humorous way too, right? The religious sort of diversity it's good. So
Bert Ehrman does the
Thanks
same
for the
thing,
question.
did when he was still a teacher.
Yeah. Oh, really? Nice. Yeah. Nice. So thanks for the question, Koopa.
Yeah.
That's a good question.
Chrissy for 5. Wes Huff, Craig Evans, Mike Lacona, etc. are proof New Testament studies is not serious. No serious historical discipline would allow their BS like this.
Well, let's be clear. Wes Huff hasn't done anything at all.
Yeah, he hasn't done anything
yet.
And
I as somebody who studied for a long time actually under Craig Evans, I think it's kind of tragic, because if you read Evans's work from before the 1990s, there's a lot of it that's actually very good. And I just it's unfortunate the way that that some of these guys have gone. So I don't know.
CJ, have you read Lacona's new book on gospel using Greek literature tropes?
No, I haven't.
Is it
No.
is it Jesus? It's really
No,
good.
Yeah.
Is that
It's
unpopular
actually-
with the evangelicals?
Well,
yeah,
that's
it's one that's very much getting him canceled. But it basically it's pointing out that obviously the people who wrote the Gospels had learned Greek literature, and had studied that way, and were using things like making up speeches and compressing time and
he's definitely getting canceled.
So I would be hesitant to put Mike Lacona in this group, primarily because this latest book is absolutely, the evangelicals just hate him.
Well,
it.
even
Maybe he's kind of coming around to something a little more sensible.
Maybe.
It's hard to dismiss people, I think like Wes Huff, to Kipp's point, and this is just going to sound like sour grapes, but honestly, he's not actually a scholar yet. Like he's training, so he's not there yet.
Yeah.
These other two guys are, they've done a lot of great stuff. Craig Evans, I've done a lot. I did a thing on something I published in a journal, not a journal, edited book that he was the editor of, and so I've got something in the same book as something by Craig Evans. Yeah, I mean, it's so difficult to tease apart, I think, when people put on their scholar hats and their apologist hats. Like this probably goes for William Lane Craig too. I think he can do some pretty good philosophy of science or something, but then he turns around and is, saying things that is not the philosopher hat. So it's hard. I guess we're complicated people, and when we approach these subjects that are so fraught with emotion for certain people, or that we belong to communities that require us to do and say certain things, I guess it's complicated. But I was just going to say there is a case that when I talked to Richard C. Miller, I hope he doesn't mind me saying this. I hope I'm not outing him on this particular point, but he has moments where he's like, I don't think biblical studies should exist, because it's just like basically just created to kind of to hold, he would do a better job than me, but that's saying this, but it's like basically created to perpetuate our sacred myths, as opposed to like being a really serious historical field. So,
and I mean, and like that happens. Right. It certainly happens. I just don't. I think you're probably on the same page with me that it's. I just don't think it's worthwhile dismissing the entire guild out of hand because of that. So,
Chrissy for 2, the Copper Scroll is a pirate treasure map.
Pirate treasure map.
It would be cool.
Yeah. Don't tell Lawrence.
Okay. Cannon for 10 beaver bucks.
Shannon.
Sorry, Chrissy said this.
Shannon. Chrissy. Yeah, Shannon for 10 beaver bucks. When they say reliable, they just mean a person in a position to know who wrote it. It's a way to smuggle in authorship to allow more data on the table while confusing semantics.
Yep. No, I don't disagree at all.
I really have to bring this one back because it made me laugh. Not to be confused with onanistic congruence.
That's fun.
Galascarni for 10. Hey, Galascarni. Further affiant saith not. I have no idea what that's referring to.
I don't either, but thank you.
Thank you very much.
Those are all the super chats. It's not all the stuff that was interesting to highlight, but
let's jump ahead to the empty tomb stuff on and that's it's on the document. Shoot, let me pull it up.
I'm not looking at the dots.
1628. Okay.
Okay, so we weren't super far off.
We're 16 minutes in.
There's a bunch of data left on the ground.
I know, right?
Didn't do that on purpose, but okay.
I offer the resurrection as the best explanation for all this extra data you're not explaining. If you're not going to explain it, I am justified in saying the best explanation of the maximal case of all of our available data is that Jesus rose from the dead. You are fine not explaining it, but don't tell me I do not have the best explanation if you're not going to replace it with a better one. You're not even going.
And you can't say it's made up.
Okay. This is one of those things. This is like Kent Hovind going, well, if you can't replace my stupid theory with something better, then mine's true. Because he's said that many times over the years. He was like, well, if you can't replace the young earth creationist explanation, your theory's stupid. If you can't explain mine or replace it with something better, then, well, young earth creationism's by default true. Like, come on, bro. You gotta know better than this. You have to, right? You're a philosopher. You must know better.
Going to attempt to explain all this additional data.
Yeah, most of the time, it's just going to boil down to them saying that isn't data.
Again, right?
Because
Again,
they're going to model
thank
the
you,
Gospels
Thad.
in such a way that, like,
Yes. Correct. God,
Correct.
it feels good when they really just get it. And then immediately swerve away and don't get it.
you don't have to. There is no empty tomb to explain. There is no 21 set. There isn't no 21 unique eyewitness testimonies that we have that are recorded in the Gospels, right? That's all legendary development. The only thing that we really have to explain is Peter.
And I've done a test case on this because I've had 2 debates, Jim Majors and Captain Dadpole. We didn't debate the resurrection. I wanted to do something different because I really wanted to test this. I debated them on, was Jesus buried in a tomb? And both times they did not know what they were doing. I'm sorry, that's just the fact. They just explain things out of way. And the point I was trying to make is, if we just go with a natural thing, being buried in a tomb, why are you dismissing it when all the data points to that? And you're coming up with all these ad hoc, convoluted explanations to make Jesus remain on the cross or get thrown in a mass grave. You're not.
Go ahead, Paul. I know what you're going to say. Go ahead.
You don't, because well, I mean, you debated 2 people who, like me. Oh, actually, no. Jim had some credentials, but like,
Yeah,
I don't care that you debated 2 people and owned them on, like, whatever. That's the part actually.
There's
This time
recollections on
listening here
point
to
here
think,
too.
yeah, I don't. Fine, but
Mhm.
I mean, you did a whole thing that you even asked me for sources in the Talmud to demonstrate that people typically were put in mass graves after they were crucified.
I mean, yeah, but the trouble is, if you count the Joseph of Arimathea story as data, well, then the other ones don't make sense. But the question I like to ask, and I asked Joni Magnus this, and like other people, it's like, well, what do you think happened to the thieves who were crucified beside Jesus? And no one's like, oh yeah, they were definitely put somewhere where people remembered, because that's just not the way that would have gone. They built in their Jesus special story, which to me sounds very invented to cover up the fact that the plausible scenarios of where Jesus's body would have ended up wouldn't have led to a remembered place. So yeah,
I just don't even think that this is I fundamentally reject this idea that this is where all the data is pointing. Like, even if you're just looking at the Bible, I don't think this is right. I've started to get this idea in my head here that I'm not sure that Paul thinks. Now, I don't think he was buried. I don't think that Paul thinks he was buried in a tomb, certainly. But I just don't even know if, based on some of the things that I see in Paul, Galatians chapter 3, verse 1 and 2 and 17, I think, is where he talks about Jesus hanging on a tree. I'm just not even sure, based on some of the things that we see in Paul, that he even thinks he was like buried. It's so much of this stuff, even from a scholar, and that's why there's so much active scholarship on a lot of this literature. Well, I mean, because there's so many Christian scholars. There's so much Christian scholarship on Christianity out there. But the reason there's so much is because so much of this stuff is just not clear.
Or even knowable.
Or even knowable. Exactly. like 1 Corinthians chapter 15, because this is where these guys hang their hats on all the time. Jesus died according to the scriptures. He was buried, and then it says he was raised after 3 days. Like, well, what does all of that mean?
So the Greek word there, and I do not speak Greek, so the Greek speaking people in the room can correct me, but so it's taphe, right? The word, the verb for buried there. There have been, I found a great study a while back that was not studying the Bible at all, but it was actually just discovering, just for using burial practices at the time and how it was written about in Greek literature. And the linguistic range for that word can be anywhere from, like, in a pristine pyramid, royal's tomb, to abandoned by the side of the road. Like there's enough range in that word and how it's used to be mass grave all the way up to something super special. So yeah, for Paul to use, again, I think that Paul was given this creed from someone else, so I don't think Paul came up with it. But in that, in what's there, yeah, the fact that it's a remembered place that he was buried doesn't follow necessarily just from that single word. That was all I wanted to say there.
Okay.
CJ, am I wrong about that?
I think you're right. I was just looking it up in the LSJ. Yeah, I think like honor with funeral rites, carry out a burial. It sounds like it can be some of the things around burial too. But I apologize. I'm not super prepared to talk about this word. I haven't done a word.
Oh, that's fine.
I should have.
There's other things. So this is something that I was looking at yesterday and today. So this is not but Paul, I don't think, knows an empty tomb. The author of the book of Hebrews certainly doesn't know the empty tomb, and actually doesn't even seem that interested in the resurrection period. There's a couple of things though that appear in both Paul and in Hebrews that I think are interesting. Did I just say interesting things that I think are interesting?
You did. Yeah.
Department of Redundancy.
Interesting things are interesting.
Yeah.
So you're,
Yes,
they really are. Galatians 3:1-2 says, to whom by their, like, through in their very sight, Jesus Christ was, and the word there is like publicly displayed. It's prographo. Subject of public notice, though. Like it's used, it's proscript. It's used as like a prescription, like a specific condemnation to death. But in all the contexts where it's used, it seems to be like something that's written out as a public notice. So sorry, where was I? Jesus Christ was the subject of public notice. He was crucified. Like that's the whole point of the punishment in the first place, is to, hang the body up and put it on public display, to stop people from doing bad things and from rebelling against the empire. We said in Hebrews 6:6, I think echoes some of this too. It says they are crucifying again the Son of God, and then they use this word paradigmatizo, which is like public shaming. It's like the whole point for Paul, I think, for the writer of Hebrews, was this element of being on the cross. Paul talks about the cross being like a stumbling block to Jews and foolishness to the Greeks. He talks about how Christ became a curse because he was hanging on a tree. Like these are all images of like a to my mind, like a prolonged public display with not so much focus on, you know, burial and resurrection. And that's where I'm starting. Like in terms of the whole empty tomb motif and the myth, I think part of the reason for that development is precisely because of this kind of stuff, that early on in these early layers of Christian belief, there was a focus elsewhere on the passion of Jesus and on the work. And I think you mentioned too something, CJ, in some of our conversations leading up to this, that there's questions about the significance just of resurrection, right?
Yeah, it's not.
Like,
I actually have the book. I can hold it up and do a pitch here. But
Oh,
this is
yeah.
one of Marcus Vincent's books, Christ's Resurrection in Early Christianity. There you go. Now his thesis says this has not received widespread uptake, and his explanation for it in particular has been challenged. So I'm not trying to present this like this is the scholarly sort of, like everyone thinks this. But yeah, his argument is that the resurrection was not the main focus of a lot of the earliest Christian, I guess we could say, communities. And he would say you could see that in some of the writings you've already mentioned. And that it was kind of Pauline and was brought, his argument is that it was brought to Rome by Marcion, and then that kind of brought it into the Christian conversation. And from there, resurrection became like the thing. Whether you think that or not, like it's a little bit more of a kind of bold hypothesis, and it's really interesting. I'm going to interview him on it next week. So I'll have an interview with him about it, and he can kind of speak to it. But regardless, you will find early Christian texts that aren't all that interested in it, it seems. And that's something that does seem kind of worth,
I think it's significant, right?
About, you know? Yeah.
So all that to say, you know, these things, if you're thinking about this stuff like a historian or like a biblical scholar or, you know, a philologist, you're not going to just take on the face of it the theological models that have resulted from like hundreds of years of development in these texts, the ways that Than and Mike and Nick want to. So,
and it's not that we're full court pressing against something that would be naturalistic, right? It's just like this seems like something that developed later.
Yeah.
So it's not that I'm against that he was buried. It's just that's not the reason. Some naturalistic mindset is not why I have to deny a tomb. So anyway, carry on.
All right, back to it.
Actually following the data. So if you can't actually follow the data when it comes to being buried, why do you think I'll believe you when you say you're following the data when it comes to the resurrection hypothesis? All the data shows Jesus was buried in the tomb. Fight me. Like, that's just what it shows. And to you just dismiss that away tells me you're not actually following the data where it leads. I'm ready. Again, tomorrow, come debate us on the resurrection. I am so ready. I am so confident in this argument. Clip me. Let's just talk about Jesus being buried in a tomb. Explain to me why you don't think that happened. And then you got to start explaining away Josephus's references to crucified victims being buried. The archaeological data of Yohanan. You have to start explaining away passages in the Gospels, in Paul. I mean, there's the character of Pilate.
Oh my God, Paul, how do you deal with all that stuff?
Like it's in a way he's kind of right though. Like for me to debate someone like Inspiring Philosophy on the resurrection would be foolish because we are not coming at this in any way trying to explain the same data. You absolutely would need to walk back to debating. Sure, one could debate empty tomb, right? And but you really need to step back and debate like gospel reliability because you're so far down not explaining the same thing when you get to by the time you get to resurrection, it's pointless.
I mean, I just want to note here that according to the laws of the internet, Mike is wrong because he got emotional.
That's
unanimous on the internet that if you show emotions or get very intense about something, that automatically makes anything that you say wrong. I believe it's called the triggered corollary.
But it seems like the last several years, and I don't care. I don't tone police, like whatever. It does seem like Mike's has moved to a very angry place in his live stream.
He's always
must be
yelling.
Frustrating that, you know, people who are
Yeah.
trained in this field that know what they're doing, who actually do look at the data, don't accept his arguments. That has to be frustrating.
But I go ahead and yell, Mike. I don't care. Doesn't bother me. I'll just listen to what your points are. That's fine.
Crash out.
Yell is, yeah.
This process twice with Jim Majors and then Captain Dadpole, and you just watch them squirm as they try to explain this data.
In his blog on Berman's site, I think he quotes Quintilian, isn't it? I think he says, "Oh, you know, Christians will never." Yeah. But I mean, it's exactly. If you've got the Josephus data say, "Yeah, this is theoretical data saying," but if you've got, you know, Josephus, Philo saying, "Yeah, they were buried," in the sense that, you know, during you know, holiday times, you know, Christians were allowed to bury their dead, and then, you know, Josephus says, yeah, before sunset, yeah, the Jews took burial so seriously that they would remove them before sunset. So it's like, well, do we just ignore that? Yes.
Well, yeah, I mean, I remember I did a video on this. Here's all the
Paul.
Well, he's slushing together so many things there. By not finishing his sentences. He starts a sentence. Josephus says, and then he starts with something else. On holidays, you can claim them. Like those are different people. Those are different passages. They are about different provinces. They're about different decades, which is fine.
Some of those are like super late, like third, fourth century. Source material, I think.
Yeah,
right?
if you mush all those things together, and I'm not saying that you can't. That something that written in the 4th century can't maybe tell us what something might have been like in the first, but none of us have anything from that province in that century, so we're all kind of dealing with underdeterminate data. And also, I can grant that they were buried by sunset, and it still doesn't tell me that Joseph of Arimathea put his body in a very special tomb where everyone knew where it was. You know, like those don't follow. So whatever. I'm frustrated by slushing all those things together and nodding and laughing like it makes one unassailable fact. We would need to slow it down, look at it one at a time. Yeah.
And saying like, oh, well, Christians, which is much later, you know, a label for this group, were allowed to bury their dead. Okay. What that's telling us is that to them, burying their dead was important. And it may or may not be because Jesus was buried, but it doesn't tell you what was actually happening in the 1st century. It's just telling you, you know, hey, after this amount of time, this is what people were doing and they considered it important. You have to be careful about like how far you start retrojecting that stuff. Like I think the closest example, just because it's coming up really soon, is the Passover Seder that most people are familiar with. Folks will start doing art and plays and having all these little things and go, this is what Jesus would have done. And it sure the hell is not. Like 90% of what is going on in a Jewish Passover Seder is nothing like what would have been happening in the 1st century. They would have had unleavened bread and some wine along with their meal. But like all of the little foods and stuff and symbolism, that is much, much later innovation. So if you don't know that, you're going to end up doing some historical oopsies.
I'm just looking at this list here. This one stands out to me. There is no reason for the Gospels to make up the entombment story.
What?
Like that's not evidence.
Yeah.
I can make a PowerPoint too.
Very good, right?
I feel like that is an utter failure of imagination to not be able to come up with any reason why.
Yeah, skill issue.
But this too, I think just to me, this just screams you guys have no like. This just screams to me that you don't understand history, like you don't understand the work that historians do, or biblical scholars, because like that's one of my pet peeves, and it's something that I've learned over the years of doing work in antiquities is saying that this isn't something that these people could have thought or would have done, that's a fool's errand. Like we can say we can talk about things that people did and thought as the evidence reveals, but to pretend like we know all the reasons for all the things that ancient people did is just it's silly. It's ridiculous. Like we don't even I was just going to say we don't even have to zero in on a reason for making up an entombment story without just positing that's something that they did for their reasons, whatever they were.
Yeah. Like Michael Meseros is saying, like the empty tomb absolutely was necessary to the story. It's so they could look and see that Jesus was gone rather than digging him up out of a dirt grave to see that he wasn't there. And I'm looking at these little lists on the slide, and it's evidence supporting the theory Jesus was left on the cross. And it's stuff from the people who did the crucifying. And then on the other side, evidence, we use that loosely, supporting the theory Jesus was buried in a tomb. Well, some sources say he could be buried. Remains of 2 crucified victims show they could be properly buried. Jewish sources express the importance of burying bodies. Again, people who are doing this punishment method, the people who are having it done to them in this case, Rome allowed the Jews to continue their rituals and customs. Again, that's not telling you anything for sure. The burial is multiply attested. That's not telling you. The burial of Jesus fits with the descriptions of standard burial practices. Again, it's that it fits what would happen. Again, not from the people who were doing the execution, who had control over what happened to the victims. There's no reason for the Gospels to make this up. Yes, there is. Many. Pilate had a valid reason. That's just your opinion, man. There are no competing early traditions. That's the weakest one. Well, you don't have any other explanation. Therefore, mine must be true. That's the weakest.
There's sort of it's sort of okay. So like I should say, I don't want to die on this hill of Jesus being buried in a tomb or not. Like I have no idea, and it's possible. James Tabor thinks that he's found the tomb of Jesus. I think so. Maybe he's pulled that back. Sorry, but he has a really interesting
making a case for this. So.
Well, his works, James Tabor's work is super interesting. He imagines this Jesus messianic movement and centered in Jerusalem, and the body would be taken down off the cross. And like he has a case. I think it was a case from, I think it was an ossuary. Maybe you remember, Kipp, where there's a bone that does have a nail in through the bone.
Oh yeah, it's like an ankle bone.
The Yohanan.
Yeah, maybe that's it. I forget. I'm a little rusty on that. But anyway, it's I mean, I don't want to die on that hill. But I think it just becomes like a circular thing, because it's like, even if we had, 100 more data points of evidence that became overwhelmingly likely that the empty tomb story, that Jesus was buried, it doesn't make the story factual. It doesn't make it not factual either. Like the point is, it's like, this doesn't give you a way, this again, like this is verisimilitude, but it doesn't actually give you a way to assess whether or not this is an eyewitness account or whatever. Maybe, I don't know. Yeah, it's just, you can't do much with it. So I don't know. I don't want to die on this hill, but I think they're trying to sneak in this thing through the back door that if they can like make it sound like this is reasonable, then somehow the Gospels are, eyewitness truth, whatever. But we just don't know.
Yeah. And I'm personally going to give more weight to the people who regularly carried out this form of capital punishment as to what the procedures were, and take that as like, hey, this is what happened most of the time. And I'm going to need actual like positive corroborating evidence that this specific like burial happened. And that's probably a pretty high bar to clear, but I personally can't just take vibes. So that's what some of this comes down to. It's vibes. And I don't know. Until
Ron Wyatt has found the tomb, then I will not
That's
believe
right.
that we have.
Wait, didn't Ron Wyatt, or am I thinking of somebody else that thought it was was it the garden tomb? The one that's definitely absolutely not a candidate for the tomb because it's like
Ron Wyatt found the cross, but he didn't find the tomb. So
wait,
what a loser!
Didn't he find the Ark of the Covenant under the crucifixion?
Because it's under the garden tomb.
Yeah.
I think was that was why.
Yeah,
but
if Mike was debating someone specifically on that if the two things that were being debated was he was in a tomb or he was on a cross, I actually get why he probably felt he owned somebody, because that's not the nuanced argument that someone should try and make in this place. I'm just based on the slide. If that's the debate, like, okay.
This is my thinking 01 distilled it. That someone could be buried isn't the same as they were buried. So,
and it is also, absolutely right. Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Also, I will say that this is completely unfalsifiable in the sense that even if you find a tomb, it's gonna be empty. If you find a body, well, then by their own standard, it can't be Jesus. So you can't test this by any reasonable metric. So
unless James Tabor is right about the Talpia tomb. So
of course.
I was going to say the resurrection stories do also seem to have a lot of details that anticipate question. Like it was a new tomb. It wasn't just a tomb, it was a new tomb. So when we went there, we knew it was the right one. And it's all these things that the writers start putting in, and then they were worried they were going to steal their body, so they put guards at the door. And it's this is the stuff of narrative. This is the stuff of this. It's not it's really difficult to see these as somebody saw it. It's you can actually see what the author's trying to do there. Is they're trying to anticipate people's reactions. Say, no, before you say that they stole his body.
So I don't even think it's anticipate, because that Joseph Arimathea story grows from Mark. Forget whether Jesus was divine. The Joseph Arimathea story is the one that grows the most in each telling. And I think that people legitimately were. They read Mark and they're like, well, so they had to invent. People were actually complaining about what happened in Mark. And then so Matthew needed to put a guard there. And then it's how did this guy afford a tomb? Well, he was rich. We had to add that detail in.
Yeah. Yeah.
So anyway.
Yeah, it feels like they were already potentially getting some pushback.
So I'm looking at the time here. I'm wondering where we want to go. I thought it was important just because Mike sets so much important. He seems pretty impressed at his final point here. I wondered if we just wanted to jump ahead.
Give me a timestamp and I'll
there. This is his. He talks about Paul's point on John the Baptist. So that's 32:52.
Oh, perfect.
Yes, let's talk about that. 32:52.
I want you guys to be able to affirm for
32.
All Jewish people thought the same thing all the time. That's what I want.
All the time.
Famously, to this day, famously, we never disagree.
Nope.
Most traditional societies, like first century Judaism, are polyphasic. Dreams, visions, and non-sensory encounters are seen as meaningful and potentially real. In grief, this means vision of a deceased mentor can feel real in any culture, but in a polyphasic culture, it is far more likely to be interpreted as an actual encounter, validated by the community and reinforced into lifelong belief, rather than dismissed or hidden. This cultural lens helps explain why grief-driven experiences can become unshakably real and proclamation-worthy. This isn't my conjecture. If you want to read more on cultural frameworks in conjunction with rule making, while you wait for my writing project to eventually complete, check out.
So just pause there for a minute. We are not denying that they thought dreams and visions were meaningful. That's not the issue.
Goes back to my earlier question. What does real mean? And then the second question was, if it was the case that they would have these experiences and interpret them as resurrections in physical manifestations rather than spiritual, something like that, why is it the case that we see them overwhelmingly interpreted as spiritual and not resurrection?
Exactly. That's you go through the Bible. Okay. Take the story of them thinking that the spirit of Samuel comes up when Saul summons him with the necromancer. They didn't think resurrection.
Hold on. Pause for a second.
What?
Importantly, this story in second Samuel, First Samuel, at the end of First Samuel, about Saul consulting a necromancer and bringing Samuel up, importantly up out of the ground, is what the text says. This is a story that predates any sort of developed, because the type of resurrection that they're thinking of and the way they want to distinguish that from just like ghosts and apparitions this is not a thing like at the time when this story in First Samuel is written. And it's interesting too, because what happens in that story when the witch sees Samuel, the very first thing she says is that she sees an Elohim, a god, like a divine being, essentially. But this is just this is not what's the word I'm looking for? It's like an apples and oranges comparison. This is assuming that they even had and I don't think they do have the sort of conceptualization of resurrection that the much later Jews and Christians had at the time when they were writing the Samuel story. It was just the spirit of a dead man coming out of the ground, because that's where they all thought that they were.
Yeah,
they were in the
go
ground. You go to Sheol, right? So that's where
underworld.
Samuel came from. Obviously. Duh. So this is it's a false equivalency. That's it. I think that's the right term.
Also, this is rhetorical. Why don't they bring up the story of the person being put into a prophet's grave and coming back from the dead more often? It's like, hey, we just happen to know that you come back from the dead if you throw a body in this prophet's grave. Like,
that's true.
Why doesn't that come up more often?
I forgot about that one.
Again, that's rhetorical.
So, but I mean, yeah, like, but I mean, to Paul's point though, but and I don't even think it's a case, because they want to accuse you of like cultural snobbery for thinking that people in antiquity just were super credulous about these things. Like people believe this stuff still now, right? Like this isn't. Yeah, and I think that's part of the point that you're making here, is that this is a culture that mistakes happen.
Well,
of this nature.
He cut me off before I was able to list scholars who but there are polyphasic cultures is a thing. They exist now. Yes. They've always existed.
Yes.
And in a polyphasic culture, you're just saying the five senses. I know it's more than five, but like the five senses, we in the West or in a monophasic culture will consider things. They just consider other senses of input as on par sometimes, or not even necessarily on par, but valuable. Like that's And so and the other thing is they're trying to again say, well, I'm trying to. Well, that doesn't explain how Jesus ate fish. And it's like, well, that's to CJ's point. To CJ's point, I'm not convinced that if Peter was the first person, that he did think it was a bodily resurrection. Like all he had to do was think that Jesus was still with him in some sense, right?
Exactly.
When my grandfather passed away, my mom was one of many of her 8 siblings that saw a vision of her father after he died. Yeah. And in her dream, he was in his hospital bed and he sat up, and she was telling me this as if it was the neighbor coming over to the house. She was like, yeah, he sat up and he said, my name, it's going to be okay. And she cried because that was a part of her grief process. Who wouldn't want to have their dad tell them, like, it's going to be okay? And I'm like, okay. And I'm not going to sit here and go, oh, that wasn't real. That was just you dreaming. That was just you. It's none of my business.
But also Mike would attack that story. He said, well, see, they didn't think that that person had actually risen from the dead. I'm like, no, that's not actually what
that's not what I'm
positing. So
yeah, that's not it at all.
I mean, as we're going to discover, all the Jewish people everywhere knew the difference
Yes.
So
Oh yes, absolutely.
I was going to say there's so much murkiness around death, probably in most cultures, but
Yeah.
obviously in antiquity too. And I was like Philo and Josephus didn't think Moses died, or they were wrestling with the idea that maybe Moses didn't die and was caught up to heaven. There's like, and then look at the Greek and Roman side. You have people being immortal and the emperor being seen alive after his death, which therefore it showed that he was the son of God and things like that.
Yeah.
So it's like when you have a culture full of these stories, and then you take your story that's had, frankly, hundreds of years of development by the time it gets on the page that we can see it, and say, oh, this, you can't compare this to anything else because it's unique. But it's only unique because it emerged from that world and then went through the development and like responded, like I said at the beginning, like to Christological controversies, things like that. Like it was shaped by the needs of the community. So then to look at that and say like, this is different in kind than like every other story like this, it's silly. Like it's all, it must all come from the same world at some point.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think we need to let him go for a little
Yeah,
bit
let him play
before
for a little
he
bit.
gets to the John the Baptist stuff.
Take, for example, the dreams that Joseph interprets. Okay. They thought they were meaningful. They're not positing that these dreams they saw are happening on their plane of reality, so to speak, and like that they're actual physical things happening here. So, I mean, like, this is a nothing burger. This gets us nowhere at this point. How does this help us explain why they thought Jesus rose from the dead? But the next clip we're going to play is an example of somebody shooting themselves in the foot and kind of demonstrating our points for us.
My foot gone.
Okay.
It's gone here.
Only the Christians said only Jesus was resurrected. The Christians didn't even use resurrection language to describe just dead saints. Like they weren't like John the Baptist also resurrected.
Well, that's the worst possible example you could have chosen. In
Really?
Mark 6:14 and Matthew 14:2, King Herod says of Jesus, "This is John the Baptist. He is risen from the dead. That is why miraculous powers are at work with him." Luke 9:7 reports that some were saying that John had been raised from the dead. The Bible sure thinks that some people were using this kind of language.
This is okay. Let's just
What about the Jerusalem zombies?
talk about what just happened here. Where do I start? Okay. Why was Herod claiming that John the Baptist had risen from the dead? Because someone was walking around physically doing miracles. He was like, hey, there's an actual guy out there walking around doing miracles. That must mean someone rose from the dead. Guess what didn't happen on Paul's hypothesis after Jesus died? Somebody walking around doing miracles. It was all hallucinations. The body was still in the tomb. So yes, if you see somebody walking around on 2 feet, it's like positing a resurrection makes sense. But all the skeptics want to tell us nobody was walking around after Jesus died.
Just felt
This
the
is shooting.
presence.
They just felt the presence. This is shooting yourselves in the foot. This is proving our point for us. Yes, if you saw somebody walking around, it makes sense to posit a resurrection. If you don't, it doesn't make sense. That's our point. Thank you. Thank you for saying that. Yes, they saw Jesus walking around. They assumed somebody came back from the dead. You don't think that happened when Jesus died, though. So why would they, by that logic, those same people would not have posited a resurrection for Jesus? Thank you. Argument conceded.
Argument conceded.
The
Paul.
argument.
I'm like, wait a minute. Didn't Herod have John the Baptist killed?
Yes.
So this guy who he has direct experience with, who is known across the countryside as a, I guess, prophet or miracle worker or what have you, you hear somebody doing miracles and you're like, oh, snap. This dude I just killed, he's back.
Well, I mean, maybe we start there. Like, I don't know. I feel like that story, and I'm not the gospel expert here, but I feel like that story is probably like serving a theological point or directing towards something else within the text. Like I don't actually think, because this is part of this.
I don't think,
right?
Kipp, I think there was somebody standing there behind Herod who saw it happen and then wrote it down in the gospel. I don't think it's
Yeah. But no, they didn't need somebody physically standing there, remember, because the Holy Spirit would like supernaturally tell them the things that happened and bring it to their remembrance.
That's fair. I'm sorry I interrupted, Kipp.
Yeah. No. But you're like I don't think that Herod thought that Jesus was a resurrected John the Baptist. I think that's something that was just completely invented within the Gospels. I don't know. But to that point, I think it's important to note that that is something invented by the Gospels, the same Gospels, who want to set like an extremely high standard on the physical resurrection, like the physical appearances of Jesus. Like you're illustrating an internal consistency, so congratulations, but I don't think that's really the win that you think it is. I don't know. Do you have any?
The point outside of the context is this is always brought up in terms of Jewish people wouldn't have accepted an individual rising from the dead until general resurrection. That's actually that's the thread that isn't brought along here in any of these clips, right? That was the context of the conversation. That individual resurrection wasn't on the table. And I'm like, well, no, obviously individual resurrection was on the table for some people because they were positing, at least, okay, even if they weren't positing, let's say none of that happened, at least the writers of the Gospels included it in there as something that people would have posited. So it was in the air, at least, like that an individual could resurrect. And that's the point of that.
And I'll reiterate, like this whole the whole conceptualization of what a resurrection was remains controversial, like within scholarship. Like there's all sorts of ideas about what this means because it's not clear. It's not clear. You can't reinforce that enough. That and that's part of that's part of what creates so many problems here too, right? Because it's not clear from a scholarly perspective what that even means. Because it probably meant different things to different people. Shocker. It's hard to pin down what the individual Christian writers thought it meant when they use the words. When they employ the concept, so it just yeah.
I think
Luke's. Go ahead, but no, you go ahead.
Well, I was going to say it's I mean, all of the gospel writers are struggling with how to tie Jesus into the traditions of John the Baptist, and they all think that it's worthwhile to some extent. They go about it in different ways. Some have Jesus be baptized by John, but Mark has Jesus be baptized by John. Matthew tries to explain it away. Luke, it's like, you should be baptizing me. Luke moves it off stage.
Yeah.
John doesn't say it at all, but instead has a bunch of stuff about like, I'm not worthy to. Oh no, sorry, I'm getting these mixed up. That's Matthew. Anyway, John doesn't actually mention the baptism. He just mentions the dove. The point is, like, they're trying to tie Jesus to different John the Baptist traditions, which is a fascinating evolution in the tradition. And what more powerful rhetorical force for a writer to say it? And Herod thought this is John the Baptist raised from the dead. And interestingly, like the reader's like, okay, like we get it. Like it's that tradition carrying on, So it's like to look at something that has a really clear rhetorical purpose and try to struggle to understand the history behind it. I don't know. It just seems silly. And the Jerusalem zombies, of course.
Yeah, and the Jerusalem, shouldn't say zombies because that was just me being tongue-in-cheek, but there's those that allegedly sprang up out of the dead, when Jesus came back. But also, there is a very long thread in Jewish tradition that especially righteous or holy or upstanding people who may or may not be miracle workers don't get regular deaths. You see this with Moses, you see it with Elijah, you see it with some other folks like throughout narratives. And that is a very important thing to be thinking about when you're talking about Jesus in that context. People who are especially close to God or holy, have a certain amount of merit, they don't die like regular folks. Enoch was not for he was taken. He was not for he walked with God. So that's a huge thing that they're not discussing in these clips, but I don't hear a lot of folks talking about. Like they do focus on, oh, well, he can't stay dead because, he was not actually sinful, but that's kind of not getting back to the core thread there. So I would have liked to see them chew on that a little bit, but I don't think that they're keeping that in their working memory long enough for that to be a thing that they're going to discuss.
This prompted me to actually go back and look at the story, this particular story of Herod and his anxiety about John the Baptist redivivus. And it's really interesting when you look at them, and it's just in the synoptics, right? It's in Mark. What is it? It's Mark 6 and Matthew 14 and Luke 9. So like Matthew 14, right, says, I'll just read this. It says, at the time Herod the ruler heard reports about Jesus, and he said to his servants, this is John the Baptist. He has been raised from the dead, and for this reason these powers are at work in him. And then it goes on to tell the story, right, of how Herod beheaded John. But then when you look at Luke, it's very interesting because Luke says, now Herod the ruler heard about all that had taken place, and he was perplexed because it was said by some that John had been raised from the dead, by some that Elijah had appeared, and by others that one of the ancient prophets had arisen. And Herod said, John I beheaded, but who is this about whom I hear such things? And he tried to see him. So it's like Luke is actually like, Herod's like, no, no, I killed that
I cut
guy.
that dude's head off.
It did. It's not him.
Fake.
So
Fake news.
Yeah.
Luke wasn't allowed to stand in the corner and watch Herod do stuff.
Yes.
Right. That's it.
Yeah.
That's got it.
Yeah, I should have brought up the Mark example, because then it was actually people were reporting to Herod that it was some, like there were people in the crowd, people in the general populace who were willing to entertain the notion that an individual rose from the dead. And
Yes.
like that's very clear that was on the table as a possibility.
Yeah. No, that's but yeah, I think, I mean, we can maybe watch this a little bit more to the end here, but
Yep,
like,
let's do it.
yeah.
Beast.
I love when they bring that example up because I'm just like, think about what you're saying here. Think about what you're saying.
What exactly was his point? This is one of those places where I think it's going over my head for some reason. What is he trying to accomplish by bringing that
I
up?
pointed out that only the Christians said Jesus resurrected. They didn't use that language to talk about dead saints. And Paul's like, but Herod in the gospel said that John the Baptist was raised from the dead when he heard Jesus was doing miracles. Aha, somebody did posit resurrection for a dead saint. Because there was a guy walking around who he thought was John, which tells you that they're not going to posit a resurrection unless they see a body walking around. Thank you. That's our point.
But that's why I'm like, what is he trying to accomplish?
He's trying to say that people did describe dead saints as being resurrected, but he's not thinking about the context of those two different things.
How is that like bad consequences for? I don't know. Whatever.
You're overthinking it, man. It's just.
I'm trying to steel man him.
Listen,
Very hard.
I fully agree that Herod thought John the Baptist rose from the dead, and his evidence was there's a guy walking around on 2 feet doing extraordinary things. If somebody came into Herod's room and says, I had a vision of John the Baptist, I felt his presence, he's not going to be like, aha, God raised him from the dead. Like, that's the difference here. So if you're going to say, as a skeptic, well, people did posit resurrections for dead saints. Why? Why were they? Oh,
Again, Kipp, didn't you just now read a narrative where Herod's like, nah, it can't be John. I cut his head off.
Yeah, clearly they are not. Clearly, that's the wrong version of the story in their minds, obviously. But
Okay.
it's
they saw somebody.
What were you gonna say?
no, it's fine. Maybe I think he's just ranting at this point.
They're laughing at me because I'm so dumb.
You are.
Ah, yes.
Yeah.
Well,
You never
if
thought
you
of
are,
these
then
things.
so
I'm
are
sure.
we, I think so.
Yeah. But I like this. again, it just it bears reinforcement. Like this idea, what on earth people thought resurrection meant in early Judaism. But was it? Yeah, I'm sure some people thought that. Yeah, physical people walking around, that resurrection, but not everyone thought that. It is unclear. Our best sources, right? Well, so yeah, I mean our best sources from the period, from the region, are the Dead Sea Scrolls, and within the Dead Sea Scrolls, there is a concept of resurrection, but it's clearly like spiritual bodies, very much like what Paul, I think, envisions, this glorified body, right? Which is different from what even you see in this story of Herod, or in the way that Jesus is presented in John, right? But it, or even, I think, a good example of this is like the Book of Jubilees has a different kind of
Yes.
concept of resurrection, right? Let me see if I can find it here. Oh no,
Sephriovalim, my beloved.
so shoot, I thought I had this on hand, but
Every time somebody
okay, here.
mentions Jubilees, Matt Munger gets his wings.
That's true. Okay, here we go. So like this is Jubilees 23, right? And at that time the Lord will heal his servants, and they shall be exalted and prosper greatly, and they shall drive out their adversaries, and the righteous shall see it and be thankful and rejoice with joy forever and ever, and they shall see all the punishments and curses that had been their lot falling upon their enemies, and their bones shall rest in the earth, and their spirits shall have much joy, and they shall know that the Lord is the one who executes judgment and shows mercy to hundreds and to tens of thousands and to all that love him. So did you catch that? Their bodies are still there in the ground. The resurrection for the yeah, exactly. But it's just there are all sorts of ideas within Judaism of what this means, what this looks like, and it's like the mic drop for Mike is that somehow he thinks that you have missed, Paul, that everyone in early Judaism had this very fixed idea of a resurrection, and if Jesus had not physically appeared to people, there's no way they would have attached that idea to him. Just none at all.
That's the conclusion he's drawing from the story. He's trying to say that a physical person wandering around was sufficient for them to say individual resurrection, and he's laughing about that. But what he didn't demonstrate was that was the minimum threshold for which they would accept that. And what you just demonstrated was there's a whole spectrum of thresholds below that, which would also, at least theoretically, let people prompt and say maybe resurrection. So
exactly.
Jesus appears on a mountain to the disciples at the end of Matthew, and it says many believed him, but some doubted. Like,
right?
Yeah.
Are they having a picnic? Like,
right?
Yeah.
That's another thing. It's like they were there, and they're still like, I don't know.
Yeah.
That's telling me a lot more.
Unless I put
I think
my
they would
finger in his side. Picnics don't count.
Don't.
I'll say it with me.
All right. Well,
do you want me to just finish this out?
Nah, I think
Literally,
I think we're done. Like I said, he's just gonna yell.
Yeah, I don't wanna
Which
listen to
really is
that.
just I've been discovering is just, I mean, that's kind of an inspiring philosophy stream nowadays, is just him yelling at and everyone.
I asked, like, how could you watch so much? Like,
I've asked him this multiple times.
Lots of people say I have a problem. I've become accustomed to describing it as like a superpower, like, you know, in Mystery Men or in the Boys universe. I've got like one of those super useless, those incredibly useless superpowers that are good for nothing. Just an incredibly high sober tolerance for like
bullshit.
Astonishing bullshit. So it's it's a problem. So but you know, if somebody's gonna watch these guys. Or I guess maybe
they don't.
I do. That's most of what I do all day long is listen to this stuff.
Yeah.
In fact, I'm convinced that my neighbors think I'm crazy because I wear earbuds and I'm walking my dog and I listen to apologists. And a lot of times I'm yelling like, "No, that's not." And I realize I'm out walking my dog and no one knows what I'm reacting to. But yeah,
old man yells at cloud.
That's funny.
Wow.
Yeah.
And he says, "Kipp is the polka dot man of biblical scholars."
Yes, I am. Very true. All right.
Well, it deserved an answer because they were not very nice to Paul, and
they were not
great and very
they were not very nice. But that's
they just don't like his opinions. So anything he says, they're just gonna dismiss it and laugh and say that they won. So.
If you could focus on coming up with explanations for stuff, Paul, that doesn't say it's made up, like find explanations for facts.
Yeah, that would be great.
Don't say it's legend. That
Perfect.
Would be great.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the only one that. Yeah.
So okay, one more question before we start to wrap is it their understanding or assertion, perhaps, that resurrection as a concept was so normative that Jesus raising from the dead just as a phenomenon wouldn't have shocked them, or that it was so normative as a concept that when someone does come back, but this one's special, that they start writing about it but don't write about other resurrections? Like, what's going on?
That's the right question.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think they want to say number one, but
I probably, yeah. But it is like it is. It's been pointed out a number of times that there's like it's, if the Bible is to be believed, that resurrection is pretty common. Like it happens to a lot of people. Vish just brought up the dead guy who got thrown onto the bones of Elisha. And that did it. There's a tradition that came out of Egypt that the same thing happened with the bones of Jeremiah, right? This was like an early second thing that the bones of Jeremiah would like enliven dead people. It's just something that somebody thought it was important enough to write it down.
There's an awesome story of Saint Denis of Paris gets beheaded and then carries his head around and preaches the gospel after.
Yeah.
All right. Sure.
It's pretty amazing.
Lazarus's resurrection is only in John. Do they consider that reliable and not a later legend to foreshadow Jesus's resurrection?
So
the only thing that I remember hearing, I've heard Southern Baptist people say, yeah, but all the people that were resurrected before Jesus, they died again. And I'm like,
yeah.
That I heard somebody say that I think it might have been Jeremiah Johnston talk about how there's two tombs for Lazarus, right? Because he died again.
They wouldn't just use that one
second
again?
Time.
Why?
There's a fun thing. Mark Goodacre pointed this out to me when we were talking about John being synoptic, but that in Luke it tells the story of Mary and Martha, and the important thing is like that one chooses to listen to Jesus and one chooses to clean the house. And then in John they go on to say like a certain Lazarus who was the brother of Mary and Martha, kind of like a callback to that, But then John tells the story of Lazarus being raised from the dead, and it's like, you think you would have mentioned that one before. That's it's an interesting story. You might want to
I mean, it's like Elazar wouldn't have been a super uncommon name at the time, so there's 1,000 Marys to talk about. So again, Miriam is probably not uncommon.
Maybe. I think it's the same one. I think they're all from Bethany too and stuff. Anyway, I need to go into the details.
Yeah. Oh, part of it too is just the parable. The parable of Lazarus is a bit on the nose as well.
Right.
You know, in both stories in the Gospel of John, it's almost like it's almost like it's a carefully crafted theological narrative.
No, but you can't say that.
Feels like it.
You have to come up with an explanation that's not that.
Yeah.
Kipp, don't you understand?
Okay. I think that's it. That's the other thing too, where, like, with this video in particular, something I started to recognize was, as much as these guys want to insist on making a case for a quote unquote maximal data case, we're taking the whole thing seriously. Where you have to explain all the data points. They're still picking and choosing their favorites, right? Like, they're just doing their own version of minimal facts, but with a lot more things to consider.
With extra steps.
with extra
Medium
minimal facts with extra steps.
Yeah. So more minimal facts. So yeah. All right.
You have to do with a book that's not univocal and that contradicts itself a whole bunch of times.
It's tough. It's tough. Yeah. So
yeah.
We've got some questions and some super chats, I think, don't we? To finish out here.
Yeah, let me pull a couple of those up.
I think Vegan Diggin was next.
Just because this one was interesting.
Oh, yeah.
Mark, the earliest source, had no actual resurrection, just a translation to heaven. Markson, I'm assuming that's a scholar, thinks the transfiguration may have been the original event.
Do you know anything about that, CJ?
Yeah, I made a video about it. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
It's an interesting hypothesis. Yeah, and there's a transfiguration story from the Apocalypse of Peter as well that looks like, but in that case, the transfiguration is actually the translation to heaven. Like, Jesus goes with Moses and Elijah and goes to heaven. So there's a question of whether that's an earlier tradition or whether it's
Well, that's fun.
Dang. Vegan Dagan, even though I want to say Vegan Degan, sent the $4.99 super chat.
It's more fun than it rhymes.
Sticker.
It does.
I don't know. I couldn't scroll that far back, so thank you. Treecline Chapter 5. There's no reason for Stanley and Steve Ditko to make up Spider-Man because New York is so well attested in multiple sources. It's continuously inhabited.
Spider-Man met Barack Obama, and I believe
right.
that Barack Obama was real.
He was and is.
No,
He just wasn't born in America. That's all.
Neither were we, Kipp. Neither were we.
None of
Correct.
us.
Neither are real. As the saying goes, 3 Jews, just one opinion.
Yeah.
Here at Fantastic for 10. I'm just here for CJ to say bean in Canadian.
Oh, shucks. Bean. Has been. It has been a pleasure. I'm going to do it just to piss everyone off now. Slip it
Nice.
next time.
4Q MMT is about how the temple is working perfectly. We have no complaints. Carry on, guys. Keep up the great work.
Oh, yeah, right. You guys familiar with this text? This is there are multiple copies of this in the Dead Sea Scrolls. 4QMMT is so called because it's Ma'aseh Miksah HaTorah, some of the works of the law, and it's like an accounting, a listing, a dialogue. It's very interesting because it's like a dialogue that's taking place between who we assume are like the Yachanesines, the people who wrote and collected the Dead Sea Scrolls, with their rivals, perhaps in the Jerusalem temple or among the Pharisees, basically pointing out to them that we are actually way better at keeping the law than you guys are,
More
because
holy than you.
yeah, we do all these extra things that make us even better at it than you. So yeah, it's a good text to bring up, Simone. Thanks.
Neener. Axiomatic 87 for 5 beaver bucks. This looks much like the classic apologist move of supernatural stuff in the Bible is absolutely literal and historical, except when it isn't.
Yep.
Okay. Jessica, the Transmetal Alchemist, for 10. I think that's dollary dues. Great live stream. Congrats to the host, guest, producer, and mods.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
That is
And that's
all
it.
the super chats
Oh,
and most of
right.
the comments
Well,
that I had.
let's wrap up then. You guys got anything you want to plug that's upcoming or that you want people to know about?
I want people to know that CJ's channel makes videos that I wish I made every day. Every time CJ puts out a video, I'm like, I wish I did that video. And so I'm angry at him.
Well, I was going to say, right back at you. I love your videos and they crack me up all the time. I like your sarcastic sense of humor. But then I was going to say, let's collaborate on something soon. So
we should
do it.
But importantly, in a couple hours, I'm going to be back on here talking about how the Bible is real, but all the supernatural people are aliens. So,
and by here he means his channel, Apology.
His channel.
Yeah. So actually,
yes,
by here
being YouTube.
So yeah, okay. Some of you may be watching. Yes,
it's,
we will be the only stream on YouTube,
so.
Famously.
Yes,
all the time, every Friday. Well, not every Friday, but all the Fridays when you are streaming it, you're always the only thing on. So
correct.
Yes.
So no, you can go tune into Apology Live to. But that's a more shenanigan related stream.
It is extremely shenanigans, and it is super fun, and I love those streams.
Was Dave even here today? What the hell is he doing?
He must have been working at his actual job.
God damn! Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Jobs.
Non-YouTubers.
I still have an actual job.
All right. So.
Oh yeah, okay. I'll pitch. I just dropped a video on Acts, which I had a lot of fun with, and I went into some descriptions. If somebody finds a mistake in it, let me know. But as far as I know, it's fairly accurate, unlike the Book of Acts. I'm interviewing. No, that's okay. I'm interviewing Marcus Vincent. I mentioned that. Interviewed Robin Faith Walsh. Mentioned that. So both of those should be dropping on my channel in the next week or so. And I also run a cheerful little community. It is a paid community, and I know there are so many things out there and so many options for great stuff. But if people are interested, we have lots of good discussions and scholar conversations and stuff there too. So.
Do you actually start in 2 hours, Paul?
Well, 2.5.
Okay, 2.5.
But YouTube doesn't tell you half hours or quarter hours. It just
that's true. So. Okay.
But, 10 p.m. Eastern, I believe, is the time that we start.
It's the witching hour.
So
it's a good time.
They're telling me that degen is in degenerate, so now it's
degen.
Degen.
Okay.
But then it has
vegan
to be
degen.
It's just confusing.
No, it's vegan degen.
I know. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. I'm just being
nice.
assault.
All right. So yes, Michael Mazzaro says 150 minutes. We'll all be there. Of course we will. So I have the only thing. I have a new video that is out on my Patreon right now. It's a conversation with Christy Cobb and Dr. Joshua Bowen. And it's about it's responding to an inspiring philosophy video. And when Christy Cobb watched this video, she's like, wow, there's like people who actually think this stuff. No, she didn't actually say that because she's nice. But Christy Cobb teaches. She's a professor of professor of Christianity at the University of Denver. She's also an affiliate in the Gender and Women's Studies department there. She's written 2 books now on slavery and the New Testament, and that's what the video is about, is correcting all sorts of misconceptions about slavery, specifically in the New Testament. And because Josh and I don't know the first goddamn thing about the New Testament, we decided to consult with an actual specialist expert on these things. Look for that.
Was she pro-slavery or against slavery?
She thinks it's kind of a bad thing that,
okay.
she's very much
Hot
against
take.
against the slavery against the slavery. Yes, very very
My
hot.
feelings on slavery aligned very
So-
closely with those of John Brown.
Yeah, yeah. So I think I think I'm okay to say it here too. I'm, there was a lot of stuff in this video about psychology, which I don't know anything about, and I don't think CJ knows much about, and Paul probably only knows whatever Shannon tells him.
Osmosis. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. So I was like, it's and honestly, it's like it's none of this stuff really I feel the need to take seriously, just because I think as we talked about sort of in the beginning, it's enough just to point out that these are stories. So there's no sense in psychoanalyzing the characters that exist within these stories, because yeah. So, but I was like, I do feel like it would be good to provide some sort of response to that specifically, but I'm certainly not qualified to do it. So I did reach out to Shannon Q and to Maya Adkisson, who both have graduate training in psychology, and they have both agreed to come back here probably in May to talk about that specifically, and Nick Meader's book, and his his appearances in IP's videos where he abuses psychology. So that'll be coming. So, but I think that's it for us. So
right.
thank you both, Paul and CJ, for coming out. This was lots of fun.
Thanks
it's
for
great
inviting me
to-
somewhere.
Yeah.
I never get to go anywhere.
Oh dear. All right. Well, you can come back anytime.
Sure.
Honest. It's it's all good. So yeah, well, I'm gonna get out of here, and Paul needs to go and get ready for his show in a
Indeed.
couple of hours.
Toast to toast.
So be good, everyone. Stay safe.
Hail Ratma.
Yeah. Hail Ratma. Sorry, I'm looking for an outro here. Where is it?
Be excellent
not
to each
those.
other.
That one too. And as always, Ha Tikva.